All right.
We are live on YouTube. Hello, everybody.
Who will be watching this after the fact? So we're really currently waving at nobody live. Oh, and Phil, I got. You see my little hat?
Yeah,
Got that?
I saw your shirt too.
Oh,
Cool.
Kabuto, yeah. So, all right. Well,
All right.
good. We're live.
Mary, do you want to do your little disclaimer?
Oh, yes. You are watching the raw, unedited version of the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you wish to listen to the final version of our show, kindly go to smlr.us. Thank you.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the beeper.
And this is episode 242. Re-Fourmed.
Yeah, that's it. Reformed.
We're all reformed.
Actually, our little podcast crew has been reformed back to our full complement of hosts.
That's
All
right.
of us are here.
And that's
Or would
formed
that be hosti? Hosts.
hosts. I
Hosti.
always say
Whatever.
hosts.
Anyway.
Both say
Yeah. So this is
I'm Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence, who's turning off his phone.
Oh,
Turn it
okay.
off.
Good idea.
Tom's
That's
over there
right.
playing on his
So-
phone. I thought
Yeah.
we're podcasting over here.
I think we are. I may have to actually turn it off. This guy's going to drive me nuts.
We were just talking about getting rid of technology by going on vacation. But anyway, so Phil's back with us, and so
to
we're
be
happy. Yeah, we're happy to have you back, Phil.
And Tony's here
Yep.
for a whole show instead of the half show that
Yeah,
he jumped
right.
in
yeah.
this time.
Well, he was Tony was transitioning back, so
Yeah,
I
I
think he's
missed
fully
Quite a few shows
assimilated.
too. And
Yeah, you did. You did.
yeah. It's
We
the,
noted. we took attendance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right, though. I think you were part of your time you were in Italy.
Yeah, I was in Italy for a couple shows, and then my grandma died, so I was out
That's right.
for her funeral, and then now we're back.
And we're back and we're sassy.
And Phil was in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone left the country.
I was in Japan and just got back from our honeymoon up north Michigan.
Hmm.
that's awesome. I love going around Michigan. You know, it's
The third coast.
there's so much. Yeah, and the Great
3,000
Lakes
miles
we're
of
covered.
shoreline.
We're surrounded by water.
Hmm.
You know, where Michigan is literally two peninsulas. There's the
Mhm.
Upper
Yep.
Peninsula and Lower Peninsula, and you go east or go west, you hit water, and you go north, you hit water. So
Hmm. And it acts as a moderating influence. You know, when it's 100 degrees out west, or
Oh,
you know,
They say it
Yeah.
separates us from those crazy Canadians.
yeah. That's right.
I was gonna say, are you
We
talking
love
about weather
Canadians.
or are you talking about political?
Yes, and you're listening to the Sunday Morning Geography Review.
But
All right.
but one of the big things Phil is saying he did is lighthouses, because there's so much water and,
Mhm.
and they're big freshwater basins, or lakes, that there's lighthouses all over.
We
So
have,
Phil, you
like,
said you guys
over
took like
100
a tour of
lighthouses.
lighthouses, huh?
Yes, we did. We drove up the east coast of Michigan, above the Thumb. We cut 75 over by Bay City, and then I think there's something like 160, 170 lighthouses around all of Michigan because of our Great Lakes and all the ships that have to come through the Atlantic towards the St. Lawrence Seaway, and then through the lakes up to the Sioux Lock, so they can get to Chicago, Illinois, Wisconsin. It was awesome to see the different styles and sizes of lighthouses, and I wonder how much actual technology runs modern lighthouses of today. That's something that I want to look up and research.
Well, actually, just so you know, there's a documentary, and I got to meet the production person for the documentary that's produced a movie. Not documentary is probably not exactly the right, docudrama, I think they call it. It's a reenactment of the life of the people that worked at the lighthouse and how it changed so rapidly when automation came in and took over the lighthouses. How they went from manned places that people lived to, within a matter of quickly years, that nobody lived there anymore. Everyone just automated the lighthouse. And it's coming out, and they actually filmed a bunch of them here in Michigan. And I was a guest on another tech show, and that was the guest before me was that person. So I got to meet them and have a great conversation with them.
Very
It was
cool.
really interesting.
That is cool.
Mhm.
She had a lot of technical questions to me because she's like, "Did you know how hard it is to film in 4K and edit?" That was like because they were producing this themselves, and she's like, "I had to get a better computer." So it turned
Yeah.
into a very
It's a great
technical
excuse.
discussion. Yeah, because she'd produced movies before, but they'd only shot in 1080. And they said, "Oh, cool." So they rented like those Epic Red cameras and shot everything in 4K. So they're like, "We want this to be a great film," and they're like, "We didn't have enough memory to process anything, so like we had to change the budget for the edit."
Well, it happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's. What type of projects or open source activity, Tony?
You know what? I upgraded my own cloud a few months ago,
Mhm.
and it changed the UI, and my news reader didn't like update with it, so I couldn't get to it. And then this morning, I'm like, I wonder if I just type in news as the app thing in the URL, then it worked. So now I know how to get to it. But the other thing with my own cloud is because I run it on my own server, I can put as
Mhm.
much data on I want.
Mhm.
And I took so many pictures on my trip, and then I convinced everybody else.
Are you?
Or I tried to
You're not
convince
in
the other people on the trip.
You're not in terabyte territory, are you?
I'll have 2 terabytes on there, and I'm using about 1.5 total.
Okay.
But not in.
But your pictures.
My pictures were close to 200 gigs of pictures,
Okay.
and that's
Wow.
12,000 pictures between me, my wife, and 3 other people. We
Mhm.
took 12,000 pictures, and I put it all on my own cloud, and then shared that with my class.
Mhm.
So then whoever didn't get a picture of something they needed, then can just sort through and then see whose is what's and get it then.
You just put them up there. Did you tag them or any kind of organization to them? Or
I
does the
organized
system-
them by
Mhm.
date,
Okay.
and then the date.
It's always- it's a handy
we all
way.
had our schedule, so we could
Oh,
know
okay.
what date, where we were on what date.
Yeah.
But then I also put like the main site we went to.
Oh, cool.
We went to Pompeii and
Did you see those people that were
Herculaneum,
frozen in stone?
I did. Yeah, it was actually pretty interesting.
Speaking of that,
You know how that happened? That's not actually people, by the way.
that's just the stone. The people are
No, what it is
Tony, you're
when-
gonna now. I have this thought. I've
ruin the
had
myth.
this. Yeah, I've had this. Ever since I was a kid.
So what it is, and we're going into SMLR archaeological right now.
That's it.
Well, we started with geography, so we can go to archaeological now.
All right,
What happened is
because I'm sure they use open source software in the determining of this.
maybe I don't know. Well, it was 180 years ago or something. A long time ago they did this, but it was 1876 or something like that. It's when they first started digging up Pompeii. And so if you know a quick little history of Pompeii and Herculaneum, everybody died there because of a volcano eruption. So one city, Herculaneum, got the lava covered the city and everybody died. Pompeii died because of
Ash.
the ash and pumice and gases that came down on and rained on them, and everybody just died. They didn't die immediately, but some people did, other people didn't. But the people, so they died like in place, so they like kind of fell down and died.
Strike a pose.
Well, yeah, they
Basically.
laid over or whatever, and when then they hardened there, and all the pumice around it hardened. Because it was pumice, their air could go through, and their bodies decomposed. So their bones were there, but nothing else was. But
so if you
cavity.
shake that, you'll hear the bone inside the pumice.
No,
I'm just asking.
no, I know. Let me finish my story.
Okay.
So it left a cavity where the body was,
Okay.
and then when they found the cavity, then they filled it with
Plaster.
with plaster. So what you see is plaster in the form of the actual body. And then they went through and cleaned it up.
Well,
and
clearly,
so
I'm
this
not
is the
going
person
there
that-
now.
So there was a dog. I think there was a child,
Mhm.
and there's a couple other ones that we saw
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
It was interesting.
I bet it was.
Yeah. So it's and they still haven't fully excavated those cities.
Mhm.
They're only about 80% done. And they said, well, we know everything we need, so we're not going to excavate anymore.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
So yeah. And so my whole trip was kind of like that. We went to 8 different archaeological sites
Mhm.
and 4 different museums and 20 restaurants with
Uh-huh.
wine and pizza and
How's the pizza
so
there?
it was really good. It's very different from what we have here. What we have here is Americanized, and
Yes.
it's basically people. I guess the story I heard is people coming across
Do
from.
they fold it like they do in New York?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
do, right?
it's-
You know,
well,
when I
depends
lived
on
in New
where you
York, I
go.
would fold I would go, you could buy it by the slice and you get it on these thin paper plates. I would fold my pizza.
Yep.
I would then elevate one end of it and let the grease drip off before I started eating it.
Well, you didn't buy it by a slice. You bought whole pizza.
A whole pie.
And the personal ones were, so big. One of those that
Mhm.
9 inches, 10 inches, and the majority of them are margarita pizzas, which is pretty much cheese and sauce. It's a cheese pizza, but and they're all like thin crust. You don't get as thick crust as what we have around here.
So when they say Margaritaville, it's just a whole different thing over there.
Well, that's liquor. Margaritaville is in Vegas, and
All right. All right.
no, so margarita pizza, like margarita sauce.
Yeah, I think
Good.
it's
a tomato
basil leaves
sauce
and
basil
tomato.
and-
Yeah. Yep. And then cheese. I mean,
Yeah,
but it's
pretty
not.
much. And then
it's-
there's a few things you can get on. Like if you go to
Mhm.
the restaurant, they don't fold it. You just, they serve it to you on a plate.
Mhm.
But if you buy it from one of the street vendors, then it's folded up and you walk around. You get this paper. They fold it and fold it in half again, so you walk around with a quarter, and then you're just like chewing off as you walk around.
Mhm. Okay.
It was good stuff. It really was good. But there's no pepperoni. They don't have pepperoni there. There
What?
was I saw
What?
one
Tony,
out of like the 20
you're
restaurants I
shattering
went to.
my whole Italian experience.
I saw one
expectation.
restaurant had spicy salami, and that was closest thing to pepperoni. Nothing else had pepperoni.
Now, did they have pineapple on the menu at all?
Yeah.
Or the pizza?
And Canadian bacon and
There
pineapple.
was a few. It wasn't Canadian bacon, but it was they called it bacon. And it was more stringy, hamish kind of
Yeah,
pork.
bacon's only bacon in America.
Yeah.
Other places do not have our bacon.
Did you know that? Speaking of that, we are so off topic. Did you know? did you know that pork belly futures have gone up because of the demand for bacon,
Mm,
the commodity? Yeah, pork belly futures. Just sharing that. That's all.
all right.
All right. Well, I think why don't we just make an abrupt turn and get back?
Yeah,
Topic?
that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So Tom, we know you're usually good for some
Somewhat.
interesting projects
I'll
and
start
things.
with my off topic,
All
which
right.
is I have a thing for classic. I sold all my motorcycles and I just been bicycling then, but I have a thing for classic motorcycles. So I actually bought another one. So my friend, he has 63 of them and he wanted 64, but he didn't have room in his garage. So he collects
60.
classic motorcycles and he had one of them I wanted
Mhm.
and he snagged it from a guy. I seen it for sale and he right away went and bought it like a year ago. But he goes, I don't really ride it. And he goes, you want it? I think you'd ride it. I said, it's great. So now I have one of those again, and I've been riding the hell out of it, which is fun. Goes back to that relaxing thing we were talking about before the show, how you got to find different ways to zone out. Zoning out on a motorcycle in the woods is kind of fun because it's off-roading. Anyways, back to tech related. We built a new FreeNAS box for ourselves here, and we also did some FreeNAS torture testing. So you can't post things on the internet without making someone on the internet angry. And so we built, this is fact.
Come tell me this is gonna be an interesting story.
So we have some haters on YouTube because I built a FreeNAS server and I didn't use ECC memory. And you're like, oh, you have to, because if one bit were to flip in the memory and an ECC didn't catch it, you would corrupt your entire ZFS data pool. And we're like, oh yeah, I've been to Michael Lucas's talks. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Because it's a journaling file system, there's a forever checksum system. So anytime new data, it's a cow file system, copy on write. So every time new data is written to it, it does a checksum with all the previous data to make sure the bits line up. And I don't have the exact number, but it's roughly 2 to the 56 to the 11th power of chances that the CRC checksum on a bad bit would actually match and allow it to write the data. So people don't believe that and don't understand the math behind how ZFS works. So what we did was we built an old server with ZFS, only one level of redundancy. So we did RAID Z1, and we kept randomly popping the memory out while it was writing. Like we took the memory out of the board.
Really?
And we just destroyed this machine. And shockingly, every time we popped the memory out, pulled controller cards and everything, and just powered it down randomly, ZFS recovered every single time.
Wow. Impressive.
So there's one impressive, and it's only a RAID Z1, so there's only one parity of redundancy in there. The other thing that we did as part of the further torture test was just see how much of a file. So like when we're writing the files, we've seen how many seconds, because what ZFS does is it creates what they call the L2 arc, which is the memory cache, and it puts all that data in memory and then writes it back out, which is of course the ECC fear that people have. So what we learned is if Linux or Windows and it says I'm done copying the file, if you pull it out the same second it says it's done, sometimes you do lose just that file that was copied. And the reason why is because it just hasn't finished getting it out of memory, and the memory's now in my motherboard. But the fact that it recovered was really the bigger point. So it recovered everything up to that point. It's extremely hard to break a ZFS file system. I'm actually going to be doing some follow-up videos to explain ZFS in depth to people. How the journal system works, how copy and write works, and it would be like a sort of summary of the two books.
ZFS on ZFS on Linux.
Yeah. Previously.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You said FreeNAS.
FreeNAS.
Yep.
But the resiliency of the file system is, once again, proven.
Robust.
And yeah, it's not that easy to break. So, but someone had a couple other more torture ideas that we're going to do with it. The other thing people don't realize with FreeNAS, like, rearrange the cables. That's actually something kind of interesting that people don't understand about how it works either. I can take all the drives out of my arrays and rearrange them in any pattern I want. It doesn't use the ADA 0, ADA 1 to identify drives at all. ZFS recognizes it, not even by the controller, but by a signature on each drive.
Okay.
So even when we took the ZFS, popped the thumb drive out that we had loaded it on, popped all the drives and swapped motherboards, because eventually our final hoorah for the motherboard after we realized we couldn't corrupt ZFS, we took high voltage that we had. So
I'm not surprised, Tom.
we started with the memory and it frees up.
Was it arcing and looking like a
Well,
science fiction, 1930s science fiction movie?
But after sending high voltage through it while writing files, once again it didn't corrupt. But we had another motherboard ready, so we swapped up the board and plugged all the drives in, and it just boots up immediately. Now I turn on a feature called Auto Tune, which allows it to identify the hardware and optimize it. So when you first boot it up into the hardware, it goes through, it tunes it, and reboots one more time, and then boots up in there. But it imports the volumes if nothing happened. That's the nice thing about ZFS. That a lot of RAID controllers are specific to, they want, slot A, slot 0. They want the drive in the same place. ZFS, because it's using signatures on the drives to rebuild the pools, just doesn't care. Which is also leads to us rebuilding our RAID array. We actually had acquired a really high-end SAS card that we're running ours on, and even though we started out on using an onboard motherboard controller, and now we're doing it across the SAS controller, there's no configuration change I need to make for FreeNAS. I just plugged all the drives in, booted it up. And people are like, it won't work. I'm like, no, watch, it works. You can watch me power it down, rearrange the hard drives in a different order completely, and do that, which we actually had to do because it turns out 7,200 RPM drives in that new stack, we got to get a little hot. So we had to do the top. We had it all in one row and then the next row, and we turned out they were too close to each other. So the drives got to an extreme temperature on the high side of the operating. So we actually have a row of drives, a gap, and another row of drives. And we're putting a series of laptop size SSD hard drives in the middle row, because these are all full size, to kind of create an air gap between there for heat.
So did it get hot because you pulled too many fans out?
That was part of it too. We
Did you see
did.
any solder melt out of there?
Your attempt of lowering power usage.
Yes. Yeah, it does not have the airflow because the old noisy power supplies, which we, it's right, I talked to him before the show. We had a problem because we had a friend donate a case to us. It's a 24 bay case, or 24 hard drive case, and it had triple redundant power supplies, but they were really old and inefficient and idling without a motherboard connected. I think they were 112 watts or something, just idle and noisy, super noisy. And so we replaced it with a standard power supply, standard modular gold rated one, which is much more efficient. I think that pulls like 8 watts at idle. So the overall build is super efficient now, which matters. And we care about electricity and noise. And so I just don't have the redundant power supplies. They're not hot swappable or any cool, but that's mostly my open source stuff I've been working on.
One thing I want to say is that you've gotten a lot of flack for using consumer parts.
Yes.
And not like server ready.
Yep.
Well, this is what you're running in your own place.
Yeah.
It's not what you would put in a customer's place.
That's correct. I'm running at my own place, but I also do this kind of as, I think more of the people who are watching my videos are home users who don't have the budget to go grab server and enterprise hardware.
Yeah.
It's really nice when we have clients with budgets that allow us to do that. But we built a somewhat consumerish 36 terabyte array for a client. They just don't have the budget to build it on regular server. So, this build cost them about $3,000 using consumer hardware. To build this on an enterprise with redundant power supplies and everything else, it would have easily cost them in a $10,000 to $12,000 range.
Yeah, you're looking at $200 or $300 per SaaS disk, depending on the size.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So by building this, and because of the nature of the business, and this is what people don't understand. Some companies aren't that big; they can't afford it, and they just need something large enough to store a whole lot of archival data.
Or a
That
lot
matter
of
of fact,
photos.
we replaced, or a lot of photos, and
Sorry, Tony.
and we replaced a NAS box that was getting full, but it was so old it only had a 100 meg connection on it. So
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
yeah, they weren't even running gigabit. I mean, it's just the way, the nature of the company. And if the server were to die and it is backed up, we actually are using the old NAS so we've got the data duplicated on site and it's backed up off site. They can wait a day or two for a part. They don't need this super high availability. People think that there's some like these .com companies. Like, no, they just are archiving footage of sewers. That's actually what this holds. Lots of videos that are archival footage of sewers. And when an inspection comes up, they need to pull up. Yeah, there's every
Okay.
joke you can make about
Yeah.
this.
Which we won't.
There's a lot of crappy data on there. You know?
If they ever lose the data, it's all gone down the drain anyway.
It's all gone down the drain. Oh, yes. So, there's
Oh my
circumstances where that,
God.
they
was
need,
funny, Phil.
they don't have the high availability demand. So, but, and that's why a lot of it, our own stuff.
Mhm.
We have technicians here so that can swap a power supply. We have
Yeah.
a spare power supply sitting in the rack in the cage. So if there's, for some reason, a FreeNAS box doesn't power on anymore, they can do it. But the other reason for running consumer hardware is you can swap out consumer hardware. It is on my shelf here. So if the motherboard were to explode, it's FreeNAS. It doesn't care what motherboard you use. Just swap it. Plug the card in and you're back up and running.
Amazing.
It's the redundancy of it. I think there's a lot of people who want to build their own home labs and stuff. And that's kind of more of the audience we have on our YouTube channel, except for the guy who hates me for I didn't use server equipment or ECC. And he can't wait till what did he say? I can't wait till it explodes in your face so I can see it. You better do a video when it fails.
If he would like to donate and be a friend of the show, please.
Please.
Accepting enterprise quality gear.
Yeah.
Right.
As a donation. Yeah. So that's my foray into open source stuff that I did. And all the
Okay.
other little projects, but
All the little
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Sure. Huh. Well, I really don't have anything to report because I was on vacation. So that's quick.
I've switched my Apache server over to a web server called Caddy, CADDY. It sets up, setting up a vhost is about 5 lines of config rather than.
Does it use putty? Did you get it? I know it's a nonsensical question, but
Yeah.
I was going for the golf
gotcha.
reference. Yeah.
Setting up a vhost is about 5 lines of config rather than like 20 lines of Nginx or 100 lines of Apache.
Oh, you mean how you take and you kind of not parse out, but you can purpose that Apache instance into a bunch of little virtual.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's
so I can have example.com and
Yeah.
example.org
mhm.
and whatever.example.com.
And how many lines is that?
It's about 5.
That's pretty
Most
nice.
of that is just filler braces.
Yeah.
It sets up your website with a Let's Encrypt certificate
Mhm.
automatically.
Mhm.
It will renew the certificates for you automatically. It configures HTTP 2.0 protocol, and it's just extremely slick. Through the logs, I've seen people pointing their DNS at my server, so I've taken it upon myself to provide them with a template website, telling them to fix their DNS. And then I'll email these people, but I've got a couple free domains out there right now.
That's funny.
Okay, so the better joke would have been, so I could host some golf sites on there, blah, blah, blah. All right. So, okay, all right. Okay, I'm
It's a
going to laugh
caddy.
at it. No one else will, but
I will.
I get
All
it.
right.
Get it?
Golf caddy.
But well, that's pretty interesting because I think one of the things I've played around with Apache before, and I think one of the little challenges I had was trying to get that part of it all set up right. But this sounds much more straightforward.
It is. It's written in Golang, which is Google's programming language, as opposed to Apache, which is C or C++.
Okay.
But they're both super fast. Apache is tried and tested, but I've not been having a problem with Caddy over the past few months that I've been running it. And I'm an Apache guy at heart, and it was a breath of fresh air
That's
trying
cool.
a new
Yeah,
web server.
yeah.
That says you said it sets it up by default with the certs,
Yes.
right?
All you have to do is say TLS on, and if you want to provide an email to get notifications that, hey, your certificate's getting close to expiration, that's another line that says email and then your email address. And then it's just smooth sailing automatic from there. And you don't have to worry about it.
That's cool.
You know what? And you remind me, and sometime soon, I should have you look at our Let's Encrypt on our.
Sure. I would be glad to.
Yes, the same server that you'd fixed it for that one time, which is about the same time Let's Encrypt had some issues.
You know, what I'm interested in is we talked about it a few shows ago is the wildcard search.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yes.
I'd be really interested in that because I have a few internal sites that are, web servers in my house that don't touch the internet. So, and I want to be able to have those with a good cert on it.
Yes.
I believe that's going to be coming out with the Acme version 2 spec, slated for January 2018.
We covered it in our last show.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
we were like, we really wish Phil was here because this is exciting, and Phil likes Let's Encrypt. So
Right.
Was that just the two of us?
Yeah.
That show? Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
so
Tom and I soldiered on.
And then I came in halfway.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Tony.
My-
You did join us in
My
process.
alarm
Yeah.
never went off.
But yeah, we have the same thing. We have a bunch of internal sites, and it'd be just really handy to just blanket them all with a wild card. So
Cool. I just tweeted the caddy server out to my 74 followers. All right. Well, that sounds pretty good. So
74. That's 70 more than I thought you had.
some
I'm
of them
pretty
may be
sure-
bots.
I'm pretty sure at the last time we talked about it, you said you had like 4 or 5
Followers. I have 78 now.
Ooh.
you know,
So-
I'm starting to gain some, but it's really interesting because I just never tweeted, and I've had the same account for years. I just read, and
Mhm.
but now because a couple of the companies like my videos, like Unify, they started retweeting out my videos. So the people I do have on my following are retweeting. The guys from PF Sense, the engineers at Netgate, some
Mhm.
of these big companies.
Oh,
Hey,
great.
They
that's
read-
pretty impressive.
I know
Excellent. Excellent. So you don't when you put a new video together, you don't tweet that out?
we do.
Oh, you do.
Then
I'm
they're
sorry, I
retweeting it now.
misunderstood.
Yeah,
Okay.
and now they're
Gotcha.
retweeting my videos, which is exciting. So
Yes.
yeah, once that's where I got a ton of subscribers from. When the corporate company Unify, they're huge. When they started retweeting a project video, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you see the hits coming, you're like,
Tom, what is your Twitter handle?
Tom Lawrence Tech at Tom Lawrence Tech, which you'll find. I have to show Phil this, and you guys, you see what it says on the screen here? Sweet
my God.
cron instead of sweet corn. So I couldn't help but add some humor to that. Like, make sure you have the right kernel version. Just, I'm hoping other people jump on this. And then I said,
Oh, shucks.
and well, then I put in,
We're on a treacherous path this morning, gentlemen.
then I put 00 / user slim spin / get corn and add butter :
Those sound like they could be PowerShell commandlets.
yes. But make sure
Oh
the
my
kernel
gosh.
version is correct. Yeah.
That was the cron line.
Yes.
To be able to run it at 00. It's what, run it all the time?
Well, and running at midnight.
Oh, admin.
Okay.
Yeah. I eat
Oh,
my
yeah,
corn.
that's
I'll eat my
admin
corn at
Alright.
midnight.
every day. Yeah, every.
Eat corn every day at midnight.
All right.
I see
Mary's-
nothing
well,
wrong with that.
Yeah.
Mary's giving us a
Yep.
sign.
I'm giving us the collective hook because we need to move on to probably our next segment.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what is our next
before
segment?
before noon hits. All right, so we're going to move on to
Listener feedback.
We want to hear from you. Call 734-258-7009 or email show@smlr.us with your feedback and questions.
We had a few emails recently. Where'd they go? What do you guys
We had Kevin O'Brien. I don't think we
I
talked.
thought you guys did talk.
Oh,
about
you know
last
what?
time.
Maybe we did. I have to look at the day of the show.
Let's
Yeah.
see.
He just said he subscribed to my YouTube channel for some reason.
Hmm.
He already follows my shenanigans on Facebook, so why not? Why not on YouTube?
Oh yeah.
I apologize for this one. I don't have my computer in front of me. I
That's
also
all right.
haven't checked my email.
We
because
also
why
have-
would I check?
Because Phil's been gone.
Yeah, and then we did have some feedback, and this is when we were talking about. I think I had referred to tiling window managers,
Yes.
and we had some feedback from Charles.
Can we read it?
Well, you can go
Yeah,
ahead.
great show. I listen a lot.
Can you say that again? What was that?
Great show.
Okay, there
Yeah,
you
we can
go.
say that part
Yes.
twice. Yes. Thank you very
right.
much, Charles. I listen to a lot of Linux boxes. Don't often hear tiling windows brought up, and just wanted to throw a little feedback in your way regards to tiling window managers. I have run many distros over the years, used many different desktop environments with them. I went with GNOME a long time ago, then switched to KDE and have been fine with both. But now my main desktop runs Arch Linux with window manager. Is that i3?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
With no desktop environment installed, and could be happier with my current setup. And he's got a few other details of some of the things, some of the tools he runs in there. But thank you very much. Yeah, we're tiling window managers.
Yeah.
So
And I responded to him too because I wanted to mention to him the awesome window manager, which I was very impressed with. I did a review. You remember, Tom? This was before you joined, and certainly Phil before you joined the show. But remember a couple years ago I did that review on Albion.
Yeah.
You know, and of course we had the requisite jokes about the name, just fun little play on words. But it was a combination of Debian with the awesome window manager, and I really like that window manager because it was enough for someone like myself. You know, I don't just sit there and do server admin all the time. I mean, I'm an end user too, but it had enough end user type of features that really made it interesting for me, but it wasn't one of those big, you know, GUI KDE type things. I mean, I love KDE, but when you're handling servers, well, you know how it is, Tom and everybody. You just need to get some jobs done, and you don't need to have all the bells and whistles. You just
Right.
that awesome window manager really filled the bill, I thought. So
I agree. I know a Ubuntu developer, and he used awesome at the time, and he was just showing how it worked, and it looked really nice. You know,
Yeah.
if I was more into developing or even sysadmin, like watching logs and stuff, I would be all about it.
Mhm.
But because that's just not my workful, I didn't really.
You're a Minty
move
guy.
toward it. That's right. Yeah,
Well-
and so now what I do is I just add monitors. I have 3 monitors
Yeah.
at home now.
well, you're a big Tmux user, aren't you still?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
So I will take my crafted Tmux config that's available on GitHub. We can post a link later, and I can break apart my screen that stretches across my 27-inch monitor, my terminal screen, so I can have my own, I guess, virtual tiles inside of one terminal session. I want to say.
Yeah, I like it too. It's
I'm trying to get a picture of that.
well,
Wow,
tiling
that's
is where
pretty-
you can have
Oh, yeah,
multiple
you have
windows across
yeah.
your screen, and you can do that with
No, Yeah. I know
Tmux is basically tiling your command line
Yes.
windows. So yeah, terminal windows. And
Um,
I use it too. I use it through Bayubu
okay.
in Ubuntu, and I love it. Yeah, I use it all the time.
For anyone who's never heard of Biobu or Tmux, GNU Screen is very, very similar.
Yeah, I use Screen, but I don't spend as much time developing like you. I've played with Tmux, so it's very cool. I just don't. I need to stop and learn it because I'm not in it enough to use it.
Right. You know what I liked about Bayubu is you can switch between Screen or Tmux. And it's just one set of commands you learn, and it will do the translation between them if you want it.
Oh, cool.
So I don't have to like know the difference between Control A for Screen or Control or whatever for the Tmux. It just does them. You know, you do. There is a set of commands you learn, and I'm pretty sure they're the same as the Screen commands. But you can in the config you can just say use Tmux instead, and then it'll do it all for that.
Oh, cool. Because
Yeah.
I had to hack mine up to get it to behave like Screen. I'll
Oh.
have to check that out.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. What other feedback?
It's all I
That's all I
have.
saw.
Well,
Mary, you replied, but you
Yeah, I
basically
did.
just said
Yeah,
you
I said what
replied.
I did.
I
Yeah.
guess I could count this as feedback. internally on LinkedIn, and Bharat had told us, this is the guy who coordinated us for the Microsoft. He seemed excited about because I sent him directly a link to all the shows because I hashtagged them the MS Build podcast. So I sent a link to the shows. They said they're really happy. They're excited about them. But on LinkedIn, some of the people we interviewed were resharing it and had a little comment that they were really excited. They liked the way the interview went and things like that.
Good,
so
good.
they didn't reply it to us, but it's on the LinkedIn when they reshared it. So I guess it's kind of a feedback. So from our Microsoft stuff.
Yeah, kind of the.
come through.
I
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, well, he'd asked, and I just replied directly to Bharat, and he said, "Oh, thank you, awesome." So
Yeah.
he just wanted to link to all of them because once we had them all published.
Oh,
so,
sure, that
and,
makes sense.
Yeah,
yeah. So
and because we tagged him with MS Build Podcast, I just sent him. You can use it on our website. You can add that.
Oh, and Twitter or LinkedIn. Okay. I remember tweeting at that build conference, and I loved it because my handle is Linux Girl. To make sure that Linux flows through there, which I was able to get back in 2009 because Twitter was, I mean, it was out there, but so all right.
Yeah.
So I guess
Moving on.
so no other feedback.
Well, I don't know if it's feedback or if we want to
Well,
say.
that's what
but
Tom said. Tony, come on.
we were invited to a couple more of the
Oh,
Microsoft
yes.
conferences.
Yes,
Yeah, they were happy with how that went.
he wants to do some more interviews.
with some of the things that are happening that are related to Linux
Right.
from the Microsoft.
I think that's
end of
interesting because I've
things.
seen people like, oh, you don't, you shouldn't, you're going over to the other side. We hear all the
No
commentary.
way.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, do you not want someone with opposing views? That's what makes it interesting. We believe things one way,
Mhm.
they see things a different way. Why would we not want to have a discussion with those people?
And the other thing too is that even though some of the tools that they're introducing are taking some Linux things and putting them into the Windows world, I think it's an opportunity for people who might might use Windows only or might be kind of a Windows sysadmin to sample some of these things and see what's happening over in the Linux side. But I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot that both sides can learn from each
Mhm.
other.
I think so. And I know, Tom, you've said it before, the new, he's not so new anymore, but the Microsoft CEO, he's made some pretty major changes.
Yeah, and I think it's a concept when you start dealing with very large corporate companies to realize it's not at all easy to change them.
Mhm.
Satya Nadella, even the power he has, he does report to an executive board, so he can't say,
Yeah.
any of these lawsuits we got going to Linux, just stop them all. All right, cool. Are we good? No, the board would go, bye.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know in the next that next conference they've got, I think one of the focuses is going to be on SQL Server on Linux.
Yes.
And so, and I think the interesting thing about that is because I can remember from my old company where, they were so Microsoft centric, but now, it seems to me that you can have that solid Linux server underneath and then put this product on here if it offers some additional features that maybe MySQL and MariaDB doesn't happen to offer. But of course, they have their own set of features that maybe aren't in Microsoft's SQL Server. I think the big
Exactly.
thing is choice.
The big thing is choice. And the other thing too is, like it or not, Microsoft's one of the top contributors on GitHub right now.
Mhm.
They're dumping lots of code. They have lots of skills. They have a great programming team there. Whether you like what they're doing or not, they do have some very smart people working there. They're dumping it on GitHub. And like Red Hat did, oh, look, .NET Core is completely open source. We're forking it because we don't really want you guys in control of it. So we want to make our own version. And they completely forked it. And that is the concept of open source. Microsoft's learning that because no one's trusting them to maintain the project, but press the fork button and fork it.
Yeah,
I mean, just
yeah.
so it's and that's something we really like to see.
Mhm.
Right.
And I'll always say this: if you sit me next to a Windows desktop and a Linux desktop like KDE Neon, I'm over on the Linux side.
Oh, yeah,
100% of the
all of
time.
us are.
Oh, yeah.
So, all
So
right, but
Yeah.
we just wanted to mention, that there may be some other interviews coming down the path.
Yeah.
Fresh looks. So
That's right.
more fun stuff. Hey, why not?
Yeah.
We gotta hear from the other side. We can't just make fun of them and not let them on the show.
yeah, no, but they're, meeting them individually, it's just pretty interesting people.
Mhm.
All right, so I guess we're going to move on to.
Moving on to what distros are next.
Distro Fever, where we cover the latest hot distro releases and news.
It's been so long since I've listened to that intro or that little soundbite.
You said the wrong name.
I did. It should
I
be
noticed that right
Distro
away.
Fever.
Yeah, you were in a fever. But anyway, I had a chance to peruse the list, and sometimes I think when summer is upon us, people, Tony, you can attest to this. People go on vacation, and so there's not as many updates to to different distros and things. But I will say this: I noticed that Magia 6 came out.
Ooh, did it hit the list?
It's on what list? Oh, you mean the list
the
on the
top.
right? The top?
Yeah.
No,
For the last 7 days.
no, it didn't. But try for the last 7 days, it might have. But anyway, the reason my reason for mentioning this is I've decided I don't think I've ever done a distro review of Magia, have I?
I don't think so. No, it's at number 5 right now, just for the last week because of its release.
Because of the release. So I am going to do an upcoming Fresh Looks episode. I am going to take a look at Magia.
All right. So if we have any new listeners or listeners from the last few years who've just come on,
We had some.
and Phil, maybe you don't know what we're talking about.
We used
but
to have fun with Magia.
Yeah. Well, what is on the
At the-
right side of Distro Watch? They have like the top 5 or the top whatever page hits for the different distros.
For different
And it's
periods
the
of
hits
time.
for the Distro Watch pages for each distro. And so that we would watch, Mint was always, and the Mint Debian was always, toward the top, in the top 5, like always. And there was a period of, about a year that Magia was number 1. And we were always,
we were skeptical. Yeah, it was up near the top, if not the top.
Right. We were always skeptical and thinking. And then all of a sudden, one day, it just dropped off and had never really recovered since then. So I don't know what happened with that. But
Yeah. So we used to kind of joke around about it, and we thought they were, bot monkeys that were
bots
hitting Distro Watch to pump that up. But
right.
But anyway, no. So I'm going to be taking a serious look at it. So anyway, that's as far as what we see on the list here, that was my contribution. And then I saw that. Oh, by the way, too deep in. That's that Chinese distro. They've been around for a few years. Used to be High Weed. Remember that? I think it was High Weed. Weed.
Something like that. I don't know if it was weed.
Deep weeds. Well, it
was High something.
Yeah, I thought it was weed.
It should say on there.
Sorry, short-term memory's gone right now.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so that they've got a new one out. I've always been impressed with how well packaged that is. And by packaged, I'm just talking about how well the whole distro is put together as a user experience, because I have downloaded it and checked it out. And I think I even did a distro review of it a few years ago. And so it was very, very nicely integrated. So,
I'm scrolling back all the way through 2004 and keep on going. It's always been.
What was that? Yeah. Deep in,
Oh,
formerly
High Weed. It was
High Weed.
Yeah.
Yes. Remember we had all those
In
jokes?
2004, it was High Weed dash deep
It was,
Debian.
yes, it was. It was called High Weed.
Actually,
And-
I don't remember that for some reason.
I do. But anyway, it was, yeah. So Phil, for your edification,
Far out, man.
yeah, yeah, it was kind of like that. But anyway, so those are the two that caught my eye.
Fedora 26 dropped last week or the week before that, so I've been
Wow.
slowly upgrading
Fedora
my
26.
Fedora boxes. Yep.
Oh, really? Production version or just a release candidate?
Production version, I believe.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
Yeah.
I've still got some Fedora 24 boxes that need to get upgraded, but it should be pretty smooth sailing.
Hmm.
Um,
What happened to 25?
Skipped it completely. I don't remember.
Okay.
No
All right.
interesting features.
Was deep in.
All
I see
right.
Backbox is on there. That just released. Was it yesterday? No, today's the 23rd. So 2 days ago. Yeah.
They have a really nice website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Why do you say that, Tom?
Go to their website. No, it's actually really cleanly displayed. All the stuff
Mhm.
on there. It's not full of crap.
Fluff.
It's actually really easy to read. QuickDocs is a new release.
Mhm.
So I was wondering what the website was like. That's a trend I'm loving. A lot of these companies are making better websites because it used to be Linux shows. Even up until more recently, their websites always look like the 90s still.
yeah.
Oh, that is pretty slick looking.
It's got, and of course, more importantly, it has good.
Oh yeah, it has the standard ubiquitous 3 little columns
Yeah.
at the bottom. That's some kind of theme. I see that on so many sites now.
My wife could tell me what that's called, but
Uh-huh.
she's asleep right now.
Okay, yeah, don't wake her up.
Right.
All right. So
It's
anything
if you're not
else?
sure what Backbox is. It's a security related or oriented distro based on Ubuntu. So it's similar to Kali Linux, but
Wonder if anybody's
used
done a
Kali
comparison of
much
those
that
two.
I should. I had planned at one point to do a comparison. I just hadn't gotten around to it.
Still think Kelly's the best one.
I've never used anything else.
Okay.
So I need to try it.
So it is.
And now that I'm finishing my master's degree, like
Mhm.
I'll be done at the end of August, and maybe I'll have a little bit more time to work on something like this.
Actually, here's a fun idea. Well, we won't get too off topic. We want to have a Kali Linux get together here at my office.
Oh yeah,
Want to take that?
sure.
Probably fill
I
with.
think it'd be fun.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll have beer, pizza, and Kali Linux, and we'll do some pen testing on my network.
All right.
I want to get like a few other tech.
Is this
people I
like-
know that,
Is it open
Mhm.
to the public?
Yeah.
All right. So if you live in the area, contact Tom and let him know you want to come, and we'll
And
keep you
hack
the
on his
list of when
server.
it's happening.
yeah. Well, I think we set some test servers up and all hang out. And
I think that'd be, and that'll make an
Yeah.
interesting fresh looks, as far as
I wonder
talking
what
about what
results-
happened. Yeah.
you know?
It's your own personal CTF.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's-
Capture the flag.
Capture a flag and eat some pizza.
That's
All right.
We'll turn the pizza into a little flag.
Good with that.
So that'll be
You
good.
got to fold it.
A flag style pizza. Hmm.
Well, like a pennant,
Yeah.
You
Oh, a
seen that?
pen.
A pennant.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most pizzas would fall over. Though.
Well, you have to do it right. All right.
Deep
All right.
cuts.
We're off topic
Deep
again.
dish, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we got to
All
get
right,
back
all right.
on because we're over our time budget.
All right.
I have one last distro related thing.
Oh,
So
please.
if anybody happens to be running Docker and they have to, or any other container type tool such as Rocket, and you are stuck on CentOS 7, there is a Yum repository I found called EL repo, and they build the mainline kernel and the long-term release version of the kernel. So you can get kernel 4.12 that just recently came out on CentOS 7, which can help you use different features of Docker and maybe fix some bugs that were kernel related in regards to containers. It's helped me out.
That's cool.
Great.
Very cool. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's going to help somebody else out. Oh,
Right.
one thing, when I said I was on vacation and didn't do anything, I did one thing.
Mm.
I have an Amazon AWS account, for S3 and, all the little Amazon tools.
Yeah.
I went ahead and set up an Azure account
Oh,
just to do it.
you're gonna run Linux in it?
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Um,
Nothing but.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a
Alright.
story about that. I set up an Azure account too, and I'm confused. I'm gonna be talking to salespeople to try and sort it out, but it's a little bit different than I expected setting up an Azure account.
Do they have a command line? So you don't
Yes.
have, okay.
You can run Bash right inside there. That was actually at the
Yeah.
keynote.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
Mhm.
you can run it from Bash or from
Mhm.
PowerShell.
Okay.
yeah, my confusion is I can't spin up any, even though I have a $200 I have in the account.
Yeah.
It won't let me spin up any servers without also signing up for an MSDN license for all the servers. Except for
Hmm.
Linux, you can run Linux servers. So
Oh yeah.
Well, then there you go. That's all you should run then, Tom.
test for server 2016. It's to have a project. So
Oh, and so if you're so if you're trying to spin up a Microsoft server,
Right.
you've got to do the
because
licensing.
we're looking at hosting.
I
some
guess that
separate
makes
clients.
sense from a licensing perspective.
We'll get that's a whole other topic. We'll do
Yeah, it's a whole.
That might be a fun show though. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
some listeners those that we do review some of the AWS, which Bill's very adept at, and we talk
Mhm.
about what it's like to host in some of those environments like AWS or Google or Azure.
Does Azure have their own form of DNS management like Amazon has Route 53?
They have an entire software-defined networking stack.
Okay.
I haven't really used it, but
I wonder if they support DNSSEC in Dane. That would be interesting.
Hmm.
Because right now, Linode does not. And that's probably going to get me to leave Linode. Oh, well.
let's move on to the news.
All right.
All right.
Tech news and views.
So news. So who's got some news they want to talk about?
You know, my goal, I want to preface the news by my goal is always to try to find something that Tom hasn't found.
Oh,
I do. When I sit down in front of my workstation, I think, okay, Tom's out there finding news. He's got that little app that allows him to read it at incredibly fast speeds. So he does that because half the stuff I come up with, Tom has.
or the other
And that's
thing,
okay. And that's perfectly all right. This is more of a humor thing, Tom, of
you know what?
course.
You know what else you could do is if you go first, then Tom can't talk about it. Then who knows who came up with it first?
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah, you probably have. And actually, this one is probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks old anyway. But it had to do with the. You didn't talk about the DRM being approved for W.
It's in my show notes for now.
See? All right. Well, good, Tom. Go ahead and talk
That was
about it.
extremely
That's my.
cryptic.
That's my. What was that?
That was extremely cryptic.
But that's all we needed.
Oh,
Yeah, that's all we
So-
needed.
so
No, what happened is that let me just pull up.
Go ahead and
the,
start it.
talking-
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. But you're talking about DRM and
Yeah, It's W3C had approved it for HTML5,
Yes.
Yeah.
and there were a lot of people. Yes,
Oh,
there were
this goes worse.
a lot of people who were opposed to it, including the EFF.
Mhm.
And it's scary who's not opposed to it.
Well, I will not be the least bit surprised when you tell us, Tom, who's not
The guy who invented it,
Tim Berners-Lee.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's for it. He's got some commentary on it, so he's for it, but he had
Mhm.
some reasoning behind it. But still, the EFF has a much better perspective on it,
Mhm.
which I enjoy. So, and I think there's a little bit of history we can talk about with.
Just to comment on Tim Berners-Lee, he just didn't think that the objections were substantial enough, according to the article I saw, to warrant it not being part of the standard. So I don't know who prepared the objections, but they didn't work hard enough. Darn it.
There's
Mhm.
plenty of angry people now.
Mhm.
I've got my table flipping emoji going right now.
Oh, I know. Well, and then one thing is about DRM that let's go all the way back to Macrovision. Do you remember Macrovision at all?
I remember the name.
So Macrovision was back in the VCR days, and it was a tool to prevent you from copying VCR tapes, and it lowered the quality. It not as a tool, but just in general, it lowered the quality for paying users. But there was all these Macrovision defeating things. Then we had the DVD, and there was all the DVD, and then we had HDMI, which has the HECP protocol in there, and you can go buy really inexpensive HEPC removers, and those are finicky. And I've had people have problems getting your TVs connected because of problems with the protocol and the way it connects to the TV, and you can't play content. Like the only people who have suffered with DRM has consistently and absolutely been the consumers who don't crack it. Because we know how to crack it, we go, oh yeah, look, they added something that I can bypass in like 2 seconds for a little $10 adapter. So it's the people who want to copy movies have never suffered. The general public always suffers from DRM. That's my take on it. And I'm like, that history should tell you all this is going to do is create some more complexity for people to suffer, that the hackers are going, yep, I can crack this in 2 seconds and bypass it, and we can still get all the things that you're trying to protect from. So it's never provided adequate protection and has ruined user experience, like in all of history of DRM.
Not just in videos, but in video games as well.
Oh yeah, everywhere.
There are single player games that you have to be connected online to play. That's
Yes.
ridiculous.
I hate that.
Yeah.
And I don't play them.
I'm looking at you, EA.
Yes, EA is one of those companies. So yeah, it's not a good thing. So we're all going to protest it. Phil's flipping tables and donate to the EFF. Make a rant about it. We're talking about it to make you guys aware. We do not want DRM in the new spec.
No,
It's useless. It's pointless. It only ruins user experience.
So that was really my big news. The other thing I wanted to mention too, and this almost falls into KDE Corner, but I'll just quickly mention it. One of the text editor I really like is Kate, and they just released Kate for Windows.
Hey,
Yeah,
cool.
they did.
Mm.
They did. So
That's cool.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's fully featured, as fully featured as the Linux one is, but I think it'll be pretty interesting to give it a try in Windows because I do plan on installing it. You can get a 32-bit download for install, or you can get a 64-bit download for install. Those exe files. Remember
Yeah.
those?
Right.
But yeah, so I think that's kind of interesting, and I'm going to give it a little spin and just see what's the same and what's different. That might be a good project for me for next time.
All right.
Okay, so those are the two items I have for news.
Do you want me to run through my list next?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. Since I would have had no list. Oh no, I would have had Kate. You didn't have the Kate
I
one.
did
you?
not. I did
Good.
not. You
Good.
got me.
All right.
I didn't even know they were. That's cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited. Like the Caden Live project, they
Mhm.
ported it over to Windows, and there are a couple of iterations into it. So I was going to do some testing because a lot of people ask me about video editing, but aren't running Linux. I'm like, Caden Live has a Windows
Mhm.
version. I was told it crashes a lot less now on Windows. It's
Okay.
super solid on Linux, but they've been working on that. Back to the news. Millions of IoT devices hit by the Devil's Ivy bug from an open source corollary. Apparently, they found a flaw in a library called GSOAP, and it affects tons of security cameras. And this another botnet created by security cameras. So, yeah, it's apparently quite the mess. And the big problem, especially around surveillance cameras, is nobody patches them at all, ever. And there are tons of them exposed to the internet. We actually have a client that knows that there's a flaw in their security DVR system, and they won't replace it because it's too expensive. They just reboot it whenever it becomes a bot again, because it won't let them access the web interface. And I'm like, it's
They
sending out
just
lots of.
reboot it when it becomes a bot again.
That's like the solution.
Oh,
I know.
Now, well, is there a certain port they can block, or is it just scan? It just scans.
It scans, and because
okay.
there's so many flaws within it. I mean, this is what shut down part of the DC in Washington, D.C., a huge part of the police network, because the vendor installed the same cameras everywhere and no one patches the cameras, and it shut down lots of their surveillance. And it's been like an up and down battle of getting them patched, but the patch isn't very good. And then when they use these off-brand cameras, there's a lack of any patching. When we do, a proper security implementation for installing cameras, and we've done this at some of our larger clients, is you put them on a completely separate network that's not exposed to the internet and doesn't have internet access, because cameras don't need to get online.
No.
And yeah, there's, protocols, because we already know we have one client, there's outdated Sonys they have that have firmware problems that there's no fix for right now because they're old, but they work, but they're also on a separate network and no internet. So, and no one else can get on that network to infect them. So they're not at risk. But yeah, it's definitely a big problem. So here's something kind of fun. Subsurface-divelog.org. They released a new version, and it is a latest version of if you're a scuba diver, and
okay.
yeah, it's
I was
for
thinking,
dive
what the heck
logging.
is
And I think
that?
Tony's
Yeah,
smiling
okay.
I
because
was like
What?
trying
Yeah.
to figure that one out.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
fun. That's a lot of fun.
and what famous scuba diver do you think?
Jacques Cousteau.
No, well, who do you think writes the software? And he's
Linus.
an avid scuba. Yeah, Linus.
Oh, I
And
didn't know
they
he was a
didn't-
scuba diver.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they did an
Okay.
interview with him on a magazine. Was it ZDNet
Oh,
did, and he
okay.
talks about his scuba diving and the latest version, which is actually pretty slick looking.
Wow.
And so for someone wanting a little trivia about Linus, when he's not ranting about someone submitting bad code to the kernel, he relaxes by diving. So,
Oh, that's funny.
when he's not deep diving into the kernel, he's deep diving in the sea.
That's a good one.
Now, this is kind of fun. There's it's repology.org, Repology. They keep statistics, and this is rather clever. And Mary's going to like this. FreeBSD comes out on top, and what these are is statistics for how fresh the repositories are. So whether or not they have the latest versions of things in there. And
I'm kind of
FreeBSD,
surprised at that, and I don't. That's not to reflect poorly at all on FreeBSD, but it tends to be. It always looked like it was a little bit behind as far as versions go. So, Tom, that's interesting.
well, don't worry. There's still 20% of the packages are outdated.
Okay. Those are probably the ones I looked at.
But Ubuntu 17.10 even is at 22%, and Debian Unstable is at 23, Debian Testing is at 24, Fedora Rawhide at 22, and it dives downhill into 30% really quickly after that. So,
Oh man, where's Red Hat on that?
Fedora 26 is at 27%.
What's that website again?
repology.org/statistics. Repology. Yeah, I thought that was kind of neat though. That someone's analyzing it, so that's pretty cool. Zero Phone, a Raspberry Pi smartphone. This is an updated open source project, and if you haven't heard about some of the 0-day stuff that's going to be released at Black Hat next week, it's really fascinating. We actually talked about it because the bug was reported and been patched by Apple and Google,
Mhm.
which is a interesting Wi-Fi hack. Apparently, the kernel level drivers are accepting commands even though you're not connected to that Wi-Fi network. So they can literally drive-by hack your phone by placing certain packets within the Wi-Fi that are out of spec packets, but your phone will then run them as commands. And it's no one's exactly figured out how these security researchers crack this. They announced almost a year ago that they had this information and they did proper disclosure to Apple and Google to fix it. It affects the drivers in a few different wireless chipsets, and but so this is a bad thing, and they're going to release the details now. It's been patched, but of course, it's only been patched for phones that are getting patches. But this made it interesting timing for a Zero phone, a Raspberry Pi smartphone, and I'll have a link in the show notes to all the details of step by step how to build your own smartphone with a Raspberry Pi that makes calls and everything. It's rather clever, all off the shelf parts. So
You know, Jenny, my wife is looking to get a new phone. We might go down this path
There you
because
go.
she,
Build your own phone.
yeah, she uses a SIM card now, so she can switch to different providers.
There's a couple. There's one I can't remember. There's our project, and I didn't have it in the show notes, but it's an open source operating system made for phones. That's made for phones that are out of service. I can find a link and send it to you, but it's for older phones. But there's also people who do this for newer phones. So you can swap them over to Linux. Now you lose a lot of the Android or Apple functionality, but you gain it's open source and cool. So pretty neat.
So, just so everybody knows, a Zero phone is like a candy bar style phone.
Yeah.
And all you do is make calls on it. There's no like smart to it. I mean, it's running Linux, but
But it's
the
no
screen
Ubuntu
isn't-
phone.
It's not a smartphone like Android.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. And even though even Ubuntu phone, which is kind of now an abandoned project, people needing concepts never really took off. A lot of people tendency.
It does look really cool though. I'm looking at the project right now.
Project. It's a fun Raspberry Pi project, no matter what. Whether you actually use it, it's still because you can. That's the most important part. So I'm gonna link to this. This was really clever. I found this morning. How to defend your website with a zip bomb.
Yeah, that was a fantastic read.
Yes. So this is
Oh.
really clever. Zip bombs are the fact that zip
I have
works-
not heard of that.
well,
Wow.
There's what a zip bomb is you can take a massive 4 terabyte file, but the file is just a text file with zeros
Oh,
in it.
sure.
So you zip it and it becomes like a kilobyte.
Hmm.
Because browsers and things like to go through and unzip things packages here in there, because gzip stuff in libraries of most of all modern browsers, including hackers doing scanning. So if you plant places that they're looking for, like your admin panel, things like that, and you plant zip bomb, it will just crash all the different.
Oh.
They try to
Oh.
open it, and they just run
Sure.
over it, just do 4 terabytes at them.
Yeah, it's called the zip
Oh.
of death.
Yes.
My
That's
God.
cool.
Yeah, so the website works functionality-wise perfectly fine. Only when people post something they're not supposed to, they get that zip bomb. There you go. You just crash your and it stops the scanning tool from further. So I planted zip bombs over.
Oh, as a matter of fact, this is from a Reddit thread back in 2012, but there was a zip bomb called 42.zip. It was only 42 K when it was zipped, but once uncompressed, it was 4.5 petabytes.
Holy cow.
So that was actually a common.
And you're not referring to copy on write, are you, Tony? No.
No.
Yeah.
That was a way that we used to have to protect a lot of Exchange servers. And Indian firewalls used to have a proxy for Exchange. So some people really wanted to
Mhm.
run Exchange servers internally before everything went to the cloud. So we used to put a proxy to filter all the mail. You don't have an Exchange server, you actually end up corrupting the entire Exchange base at the same time. Horrible, horrible product. And yeah, so it would just crash and like, oh great, we got to restore from the last backup, which is a non-arbitrarily easy thing.
Mm.
So yeah, zip bombs have been around for a long, long. Yeah, it was like 15 years ago. I was doing stuff like that to protect the Exchange. My protection now is not using
Well,
You know, it's interesting. Oh,
but just a quick question. When you're talking about creating it, so at some point there's a 4.5 petabyte or however big it is file, ho- or
Well,
is
you
it a
don't.
script?
Yeah, you can
Okay,
use
you
a script
script
to create it.
which kind of streams this.
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, you can actually
Okay.
stream directly into the zip.
Right.
That's the solution to making our huge files. Because all you do is writing zeros, and at the same time you're writing them, you're compressing them, so you would actually just pipe it right through. It may take a little while because it has to put it through a pipe, but the
Sure,
landing is,
sure.
when it actually does the file write part of it. So
actually, the article I found said that some browsers don't understand zip, but they do understand gzip.
Yeah.
So you can, and it gives you the command in here. It's a DD command that you pipe into.
And that makes perfect sense.
gzip
Sure.
into the file, and it takes a 10 gigabit gzip file or 10 gigabit, file, gzips it down to 10 meg.
Hmm.
yeah, that's one of the things they found that data.
Right.
Wow.
I started using. It's been.
Did we have a conversation about GIMP and you were not? Yeah, yeah.
I make emojis with it. It's very easy.
Once you're a Photoshop user, and one of the things I've been watching a lot of tutorials, one of my is everything takes about 6 extra, sometimes 20 extra that is not Photoshop. This is the Photoshop just automating a lot of the things.
Sure.
I've been learning. Unrelated, unrelated. GIMP has a metadata. Which is kind of cool. So now when you open up the files, so it's still really actively relative. Totally learning it.
So you're starting to.
So yeah, I switched. I didn't want to have to keep spinning up a virtual machine thumbnail.
Sure.
To enhance my workflow, I have a virtual machine like the video. I grab the screen grab video with and put them all together.
Well, one thing too is I used to not like. Well, GIMP was something I used, but the thing that used to bug the heck out of me about it is the fact that you have these multiple windows.
There's a checkbox.
Yes. And
Oh.
a few years ago, they came out with a version that you could just check the box and it was automatically a single window with the panels on the left and right, and then your workspace in the middle.
So my search was GIMP tutorial for Photoshop users, and that's the first thing they tell you to check. There's that, and the layer sizing, because the layer sizing is stupid by default. If you have one little object on there and you try to resize it, it wants to resize the entirety of the layer. I'm like, this makes no sense. I just want to resize the object. There's a box that you can check. So when you add a layer with one small object on the screen, which may be the logo of a company on there, it only makes the bounding box that size. So those two check boxes, one, consolidating the windows, two, that now it's actually very usable for me. Because most of my time I'm not doing too many advanced things. I'm just grabbing a thumbnail. When I'm talking about FreeNAS, I throw the FreeNAS logo at the top of the thumbnail. But it used to make me resize the entire layer. And I'm like, it's just one little logo that's a very small piece of this.
Yeah, why go through all that?
Yeah, and it makes me have to zoom out to do it, to grab the little corner things. I'm like, this is dumb.
You know what I did is I actually removed my toolbar, and now I can't figure out how to put it back on.
Oh, there's a reset button for that because I completely broke toolbars multiple times now. And
All right.
they actually have a reset them because I was just going in the command line and just deleting the GIMP folder and just letting it recreate it in my own drive. That way I could just.
That's
I'm
one
like,
way
I don't
to
know
solve
what
it.
I broke it.
Yeah.
Then I thought there's got to be an easier way, and I read that. And I'm like,
that's
there's a
like
reset
rebooting
Windows
a
checkbox.
Windows machine.
Yeah, just reboot it.
The other thing they did too that I really appreciate, and this happened in a later version or update, is when you were done with your work and you needed to save it as you had to export it, and there were several little things you had to go through to get it out of GIMP as a GIF or GIF file or JPEG. And I think they've streamlined that a little bit now.
The export works really well,
Yes,
and it also remembers the last place you exported, which is convenient.
Very convenient, and I really appreciate that because it was bothersome to me to have to go and keep clicking into the folder I wanted to save. I'm saving, doing work. I wanted all my work in one folder, but I had to keep.
You don't think as much about it, but until you do a lot of repetitive things like I do when I'm creating videos. One of the things that the whole KDE Neon workflow helps with is all those remembered paths. I don't care for activities. I didn't.
Didn't we talk about that?
I did some testing with it. I was going to do a video on it, and if I could get it to stop crashing, I found all kinds of bugs and lockups, and it didn't work well for me. Anyways, and they're just well known. It's not like I have to do a bug report. Everyone's like, oh yeah, it's one day maybe they'll figure this out. But what it does is remembers all the passwords.
Oh.
I just crashed plasma.
Good job, Mary.
Tom, you're talking about activities, and I thought, I pulled up, to create one, and so I created more activity for myself as far as getting my yeah. I still have certainly access to my browser, but I don't have my plasma.
And mostly what I was going to use activities for was my video
Yeah.
editing, and that's what it actually locks up Caden Live a couple times, which is odd. That's a KD project. So
It respawned.
yeah, it responds fine, but it was more aggravation. I may as well just open it rather than wait for things to keep crashing and respawning. I started playing with a new DNS tool called DNS Thingy, and I like the name. It's
Definitely.
really clever. And what caught my eye is they have a PF Sense plugin. Now, everyone asks me this all the time. I do all these PF Sense videos. They're like, hey, I want to filter all my network traffic. And don't have options. DNS filtering is the way to go. DNS thing, because it has a plugin for PF Sense, it allows you to manage all your internal devices.
Nice.
You can say this IoT only takes. So it gives you very restrictive, all DNS website blocking, all kinds. It's not a free service. For PF Sense and a list of ASUS routers. And the ASUS routers, they give you the firmware for it. You actually buy the list, you upload their firmware. Router gives them the ability to devices and then applies DNS rules to device. Really clever.
It is really clever, and I heard what Steve Gibson talking about it.
Yeah.
And did he say that they use OpenDNS in the background?
Yes.
So what advantage do you have of this over using OpenDNS?
You can set filtering. For example, you can filter out naughty websites, all kinds of lists on per device.
Who does that?
They're adding a front end. You can use the free umbrella OpenDNS system. You don't have anything more than for your network.
Yeah.
Now the solution around that is you set the different devices filtered. Not very. This is really granular. We do a review on it.
I wonder how they do that.
It's by MAC address.
By MAC address on the plugin. And I'm going to do a whole video review on how it works. That's pretty fantastic. There's a fun open source safe cracking thing that went on, and Wired did an article on it, and I have a link to the video. Basically, this guy's wife bought him a safe, but didn't give him the combination because they knew what he would do, and which was build a Arduino bot to crack the safe. And he's got the whole methodology broke down and how it works and how he did with the Arduino bot. So it's really clever. So that's the link to that video, just something novel to watch related to open source and building robotics. I also found this, and have you ever heard of this tool, Phil, called MONITORIX, monitorix.org?
No, but I've heard of Monit, the open source monitoring tool. What is Monitorix?
It's a really slick RRD collective graph that graphs all the log files in a very clever way with its own dedicated web server. So you just simply load it on the machine, point it, and does. I haven't tried it yet, but I just found it the other day, and it's on my to-do list because it keeps really nice historical logs of everything from CPU usage, wait times, and it does all kinds of monitoring of network traffic and anything you configure it to log, and it creates really cool, running history RRD graphs.
So is this on a per machine basis that this would be installed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, on a per machine basis. So you can install it on the machine and kind of figure out, look at the machine and figure out when it's time to upgrade it because its memory usage gets too high. And this has been around a little while, but I think it's fun to play with. If you ever have to do regex, you're not sure why it's not matching something, there is a regexr.com. It is a live. You can paste whatever you want into the bottom of the web page, and at the top, as you type the regex commands, it highlights the things that you're finding, so you can interactively write your regex code and make sure it works.
Does it allow you to switch regex engines from like Perl compatible to
Yes.
Java? All right,
I believe it has all of them on there. Yeah, so you can play with it. It's definitely pretty slick. So that was my rundown news list. Those last two are just really just helpful tools. But the regex, it's cool because it's all like a really slick HTML5 site. So as you're typing, it's just doing things. Yeah,
that is interesting. And in the example, they have a regex that's capital letters. If it starts with a capital letter,
Yep.
then highlight, that word, to the end of that word. So you look through there, and it's only highlighting words that are more than one letter. That's capital letters.
I like it because they have lots of, and it tells you how many matches, and then you can paste whatever text you want in. So if you
that's
already
fun.
know what your text is that's going to be through there, and you know what you want to match, you can now dump it all in there and start writing it and interactively see it without, like I do, just keep guessing. Which command was it? Is it capital? Is it a plus I put here? Is it a W? I can't remember. /G? Which one is it?
Something that I find really super helpful are regex character classes. So let's say you're using grep or sed. There is something called the character class that lets you say, I only want the digits, but that way you don't have to remember like /D or /W or /S for space. And there's a character class for alphanumeric numbers and just the alphabet and just funky characters like percent and ampersand and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, my biggest challenge with regex is I just don't use enough. I mean, I've got scripts that are using it, and I usually just go back and look at what I used to do. I look at some old script I got running that's working, and that's how I solve my next one. or I message Phil because his license plate is SEDOC, I think. So
Yes,
It
yes.
is. I pulled up. I thought it was your vehicle, and as soon as I look at the license plate, I said,
I
yes,
got
it
Phil's.
is.
To get our backcountry camping permits, the DNR lady needed to know my license plate, so they knew which cars not to tow overnight. And she's like, "Do you know your license plate?" And I was so proud at that moment. I was like, "Yes, I do."
Yes, I do.
Said Awk.
And she said, what? Has anybody to whom you've given your plate number kind of laughed and, like they knew exactly what was going on?
Only you guys.
It's okay. Driving yesterday, some guy, SCSI was his license.
Nice.
It's an old graveyard driving that crap.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me when I was coming back from, I was downtown Detroit and there was a Jeep and it was VMLINUZ, which is, I think, the
Nice.
compressed Linux kernel.
Cool.
I thought, oh my God.
Nice.
I took a picture of it. It
That's
was
nice.
kind of fun.
There's a guy at work that has network. Is his last name or his network?
Mhm.
Data
So.
is available. I need a
Yeah.
vanity plate now.
So I could get a license plate that would be AUX-SED,
You could.
Oh,
Mhm.
For what did it cost you? $5 extra?
Like maybe $20 or something.
And you can go at any time. I mean, you can go online at any time and order a new plate.
Yes, you can. When I get bored, I go to the state of Michigan
Oh.
license plate generator
You know,
to see what's available.
I've done that too. I have done that too. That's very funny because I was looking for Linux, or I was going to put FreeBSD or something, something kind of fun on it like that.
In other news, if anybody follows cryptocurrency,
Yes,
just the
a
other
little bit.
day, hackers stole $31 million worth of Ethereum coin, and then to protect other high-profile targets, white hat hackers stole all the money out of those wallets to prevent the person who stole the initial $31 million from stealing up to $150 million. The white hat hackers did it in an automated fashion so that they could outpace the black hat hacker. And then they also kept an audit trail so they could give back all of the money to those wallets when the Ethereum project fixed the code. So the exploit was between a client called Parity and some Ethereum developers code that allowed this attack to reset something inside of a wallet, to reinitialize a wallet, to say, okay, you can take this these coins.
Wow.
Yeah.
My question
that's
is, do
pretty
these
cool.
guys do they ever have a chance to spend that money?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that guy. Well, did we talk about in the last show the guy who got his? He lost $30,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this we talked about in the last show, and we'll bring you up to speed real quick here, Phil. There was a very, very specific virus on this computer. This virus has a single purpose, and it's when you copy and paste a Bitcoin
I
wallet,
remember
it
that.
flips it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that, but so these big hackers in Europe, who are, wherever they are, not blaming Europe because they're everywhere. When they steal 50 million,
F.
yeah, whatever. So they end up being able to take that out, or
Yep.
and
Yeah. Because it's blockchain and it's infinite
Mhm.
ledger, we can just follow where all the money went, and you'll follow it, and you'll watch these guys transfer it from account to account, and eventually it lands on somewhere that's a exchange that they turn it into cash.
so that's their attempt to launder it,
Yes.
laundering Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Mm.
You can't
that's-
really launder it though because there's a ledger that tracks
well,
it.
that's where you hit the exchanges. We turn it into another currency.
Oh, okay,
They'll wire it
gotcha.
into Mount Grox, wherever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
will take it and convert it to euros or whatever, and then they may not ever leave that bank. But that breaks. That's how they. That's how they handle it. I guess it is laundering.
Mhm.
They take the money, track it, they take it into an exchange, and then there's so many in and outs of the exchange you don't know, and then they just other accounts somewhere else, either other blockchain accounts or literally go to the bank.
Okay.
Yeah, so it becomes a very tricky system.
Mhm.
And then other than that, just like we get congestion, there is a new TCP congestion algorithm by Google. I think it's called TCP-BBR or TCP-BRR, something like that. It allows far better performance of TCP. Something else related is TCP Illinois. And I believe this is a kernel level thing. I wasn't too sure. I read it one morning on my honeymoon and then promptly forgot everything else about it.
Good
job.
What? Okay.
Fair enough.
I was going to make some silly joke about running it on Open Indiana. What was this? TCP Illinois?
TCP Illinois, and that's the first thing that I thought of too.
It's fun.
Oh my gosh. Huh. Wow, that's some interesting stuff.
Right. Actually, didn't get any news this week.
Well, I think
Oh,
we
right.
got you covered, Tony.
We got you covered.
Not a
Right.
problem. And you're turning all the buttons over there anyway, all the knobs and dials. So
Trying to make sure everything's going right.
yeah, you're doing a fine job.
Doing a
Thanks.
fine job.
So that can only mean one thing then.
Did you have a song?
Music. Oh.
Are we skipping it?
We could do the random 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, we're using that algorithm.
Okay.
That's right. Okay.
I didn't get to it first. Hold on.
Okay. He's over there madly typing.
The outgoing music for this week's
Okay.
show.
It's it's the intro, but it's so fast I don't get to type it out. So 9 Inch Nails is on, what's the,
Not Jamendo. No.
where do we post our shows to download?
SMLR.us.
No, the actual file where we put it. I haven't done it in so long. I can't think of the.
All right,
where
Tommy's looking
who's
at
our
you.
file host?
Sorry,
Where do we
YouTube.
put our files for our SMLR shows.
Archive.org.
Archive.org.
Oh, I'm sorry. Archive. Okay.
Well,
couldn't
I
remember that.
came
I
up.
don't know why.
I came up with the answer.
You did. Thank you.
I understand the question. Like, on my computer. I don't know.
There you go.
Backed up.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Archive. That's where they are.
All right. So let's see. Who wants to? What's the command line to grab a random number?
You can
Is it random?
tail dash n1 of /dev/u random. You can pipe something through SHA-256 sum. There's a lot of ways. I usually just Google it. Sorry.
That is a great answer.
That is legit.
But for our new Microsoft overlords, I usually just Bing it.
Oh yeah.
No.
Nobody does that. You know, it's one of my favorite memes. You know, there's a cancer institute unrelated to Microsoft called the Bing Cancer Institute, and someone has it captioned. It says, "I'm sorry, I don't think they'll ever find a cure." Just like that is- I'm like, that's horrible. But I laughed.
All right. All right.
Um,
We're ready to go.
Okay.
Well,
It's
are we?
track 36.
I got an email from Bing. Speaking of Bing, before
Uh-oh.
you go, yeah. And it was funny because it was from Bing and it was to me, and it says you can't. And by the way, too, I do my email as text. I do not do HTML email just for obvious reasons. And then so they apparently have embed this little comment in there for people who do this by saying you can't see this awesome email because you haven't turned on HTML. And I said, you're
That's
darn
so
right
good.
I haven't turned it on. And so yeah, so they and it was just simply a Bing email.
We're ready.
I think so. I think Tony's ready.
All right. So the random number came up with 36. So track 36 of 9 Inch Nails Ghosts 1 through 4. Track 36 is number 18 of Ghosts 2.
And Tony
I don't know why we don't hear anything. Maybe that's.
is your volume turned up?
Is it-
Is your computer plugged in?
Sending it to speakers.
Hmm.
Chrome says it's loud.
Okay.
We'll just insert this in the edited version of the
is-
show.
That's right. If you were running Windows, it'd be playing by now.
No.
I'm
No,
kidding you.
actually, I have more problems with switching between devices on Windows, on sound devices, because
Hmm.
my work laptop, I have like a Bluetooth earpiece, and I have my earpiece that hooks to my phone, and then I have the speaker, and then I have a headphone jack, and it can never figure out which one. Like, there's no like easy way to switch between them. You have to like shut off all devices except for the one you want to use.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
really annoying. And every time I look at that, I'm like, I wish I could just switch it. I know I can on my personal laptop.
Yeah, send me a link. I'll edit it in the show. So I'm going to edit the show today. So, literally. Workflow.
All right.
All right.
So
That was the 9 Inch Nails song.
yeah, that's the 9 Inch Nails song.
Okay.
Silence. Maybe that's what Ghost 2 is. It's just silence.
There's
Three-
a record like that.
3
It's
minutes and 42 seconds of silence.
This
Right.
reminds me of the movie Pootie Tang,
Oh.
written and directed by Louis C.K.
Yes.
Okay. He's a comedian, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Okay. I know who he is. Yeah, he's kind of funny.
All right. Well, you have been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review.
This was episode
242.
242.
Re-Fourmed.
Re-Fourmed, that's right.
That's right. No blank stares at this end. All right.
This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence.
See you next time.
You've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you would like more information about this or other shows, go to smlr.us. Feel free to send comments to show@smlr.us or give us a call at 734-258-7009. I'm John Miller. If you don't like it, you can
Fight my 8-bit metal ass. That's bite with a Y.
And we're done with that episode. So we're still doing fresh looks, right? That we
Mhm.
talked about. We can do Japan, and then I travel too, so we can do international traveling with technology and
There you go.
And
I
back
think
and
your
forth, yeah.
story, your story about your phones. Did we talk about that before we went live?
yeah. So we can talk about that
Yeah.
right in it. Yeah.
All right. Good.
All right. So all YouTube, our single YouTube viewer, thank you for watching.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna take a quick break. You
Yep.
saw Tom just walked into that orange door back there. That's actually the bathroom.
No.
So we
Yeah.
will.
We
We're
will
gonna
be-
take a quick break and then we'll
Yep.
be right back.
Yep. I can play music. Lint. Yeah, thumbprint or lint on the lens. I know what you mean. I tell you, it's just that calming, not silence because there's noise. There's noise in the wood, but there's harmonic. It's just such a harmony kind of thing, you know. Mm. You know what we're talking about, Tony. Oh my gosh, you probably.
I got to help a scout. There was 14 kids and like 6 adults, and they
Mhm.
forgot their main water filtration like gravity bag. So we had 2 of these little they're called Sawyer squeezes. Fill up this 32-ounce little container of water, and then you hold the thing upside down and force water through tiny like piece of plastic with a micron filter.
Mhm.
And I filled up all of these little, water bottles. One night at like 12 a.m. we couldn't see shit.
Do you have a flashlight?
We had 2 lights.
Okay.
There was 4 of us filling up far too many water bottles, and then came back the next morning, and then we did it again. I need to get a far better water filtration system because filling up.
Or how about have them get a far better, not
Memory?
forget their stuff? Because your system would have worked fine for both of you.
Uh-huh.
So, but I guess if you want, in case you encounter that situation again.
It was pretty cool, and that was at a place called Trappers Lake, which is just one of the campsites along the Big Rocks
Okay.
National Lake.
Sure.
Do you guys have any of the solar stuff?
We did not know.
There's 4 left.
I'll have one.
No, I'm okay.
I better eat one more.
Let me
Yeah.
check my blood sugar before we get.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want anything
Make sure you
happening.
can survive a show.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you pass that over here, Thomas? There we go. Thank you.
Tell you what though, hiking, my blood sugars have never been better.
I just
Consistently
smoked
doing
a couple of them.
activity and stuff.
That was actually really good.
And you relax. No stress.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, birthday cake.
We got birthday cake fudge. Ooh, super tasty. Oh. Blueberry fudge.
Fill up some water.
We have fridge water too. If you want ice and stuff. And there's plastic cups if you don't want to use that one. Okay. Yeah, we hooked everything up here. Did you see we redid the bathroom? We put a new floor in the bathroom. I got a new sink in there,
Wow.
so that's looking nice now too. Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that in general because one of the problems I've had was when we've had I have meetings in here. My employees are like, I want popcorn, and they come back here, and I'm like, yeah, there's not a way to separate that. It's not really the noise because they're trying to be quiet, but they're kind of like they'll sneak in through the bathroom and like grab a popcorn and walk back out the door.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's a freeway. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. We're done examining her.
You ever use a clear camera filters? You ever use a TV or
Yes. These are amazing. Yeah. They help a lot. Did you get circular polarizer? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's really cool. There's I love it. Somebody made a video demonstration of it because it's hard to explain other than taking pictures side by side. But someone used SLR and the video. You have to turn it to the right angle, opposing the light. But it's cool because you can't see the reflection as they turn it. You see right through the water. You see through windshield water. It makes a big. Really try that. Yeah. You know, the problem is with the polarizers. Yeah. First one here. The aggravating part is this is a 67mm one. You know, size. That's the big thing. I don't think I have anything that takes 7 of them. This went with one of my other lenses that I don't have any. And I'm like, oh, so now. Yeah, they're not expensive.
Well, when I was reading, they're like, oh yeah, you gotta get a Canon or nighttime one, $150. That's a good one. I looked on that.
Yeah, I see no reason.
Just a tough look.
Yeah. Turns out this is a device. This is a digital charger for the Canon. Charger is actually different. But you can it plugs in USB, but it's really cool. Complete digital readout that tells you the health of the battery, temperature of the battery. It gives you all these things that roll across the screen while the battery's charging. And it's like it was actually inexpensive. Okay, yeah. Yep.
Hey, here's something.
Now there's just a Google.
The you can poke a hole in this jack and it'll repair itself. Did you hear that? Jacket. Yeah.
If you notice, honey, I have a green here. Which is right here. And it's big enough to cover this. We have a green screen or just as big as one, a black one. And that's what these are, giant 20-foot, 25-foot.
Oh, it's just moving.
That I use. That's what they're for.
You just poke a hole in it. It's not like ripping it.
We're putting it up because we're meeting.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Because I've been our meeting here Tuesday. Thing like if we go for a while, a couple hours with our company,
How big can you put a hole in it before it happens?
You don't want to be a distraction, it's not the noise.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna put it right across there, just like turn it off. Like,
That's cool.
we're gonna find 2 tracks. One's gonna have black and green. Green is when we do video, and we'll pull that out and we'll replace our background.
That's awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does have black.
I thought it did, but I haven't used it. That's awesome. And that's what we should do. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, so that's going up, and it's you guys don't have to worry about buying it. We're putting it up anyways, and it was something like $40, and I already own all the stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah, the only thing we need to decide is, and if we want to talk today or some other time, we'll sit down and look at all the stuff. I can probably just resell that one on eBay and just get rid of it because I had no luck contacting them.
Yeah, that might be a best option.
To realize their support sucks. We'll find a good mixer. We'll maybe order some preamps and look at using the headset one, maybe test it with one preamp. I think you have one to test with.
What about going wireless? Because the wireless is a preamp, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder what the cost of that would be.
The only downside is having to make sure all the batteries are charged. It's not too hard to do.
But I mean, I just look at the prices and then make sure it fits
Yes,
in with
but you won't be able
everything.
to hear it because
all
you're
the
not in the
plans,
woods.
but-
No.
These are what I use for my own wireless.
Oh,
With my
it's great when I can
sub,
say
and you can
kind
get
of
one
obscure things like
receiver
that and you
and
get it.
first you set this up and set it up and around the table.
Oh my gosh.
These are cheap. These are.
Well, I
$80.
actually, I
What this
really
Alphabet
everybody
Earnings?
gets their own individual one.
It's
So
a
we could
2
just
point
flip
somewhere
it
to
on our
get
tips.
looms for Google. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
not really
well,
sure.
I thought you said set that.
I
in
saw
the
it there. I
middle
didn't really.
Well, no, I'm saying,
pay
no,
attention
and then
to
there's
it.
one receiver we put in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the receiver.
Hit for Google.
Yeah.
And then
that
Hit
would
as
be-
in like a
these are all
hit
the
record, or-
transmitters.
well,
Well, you want a
problem-
multi-channel one.
Yeah, we'd want a multi-channel.
That's true.
Oh, okay.
I know they sell them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They find them, and then I think they
I know
kind
the
of
ones
back
that
it
we have
down
at
a little
work
bit
are
or something.
two-channel. So we would have
The
like,
fine
we'd
is
have
not
to have
tax
two
deductible,
receivers,
so it will reduce their net
four-
income and earnings.
4 mics. So again, I don't know what
Oh.
the cost of those are, but
Maybe there's earnings
Um,
play on there.
we should just think about it. But I
Yeah.
think we should
Huh.
Do the show.
move
So
on.
that's
Yeah,
what it is.
fresh looks,
Fresh looks. Episode what?
243.
All right.
What's-
Fresh looks.
Oh, traveling international with
Traveling.
technology?
Yeah, something like
I
that.
don't know.
Yeah, that kind of flows.
All right.
Traveling international with technology.
So my point of
International
view
tech.
is flying. The,
Are we
the
doing
actual
it?
flying.
Have we started it? We haven't
no,
started
not
yet.
yet.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
just want to give you
We should
guys
have a show name though.
my what I'm going
I
to
agree,
be thinking
Tom.
of, like,
Yeah.
because my experience is flying through Canada.
Traveling with tech.
in
Yep.
Canada.
Same here.
Oh, you did too?
We
Okay.
flew to Chicago, then to Vancouver, and then Tokyo.
No, it's like my whole flight
Oh.
was from Toronto to Italy and back to Toronto.
Oh.
So there was no like U.S. airports or U.S.
How was that?
customs with flights.
How was going through Canada?
It was much easier. Everybody else flew into Detroit, and they had all these like questions about being on a farm, and one lady had to have all of her shoes like scrubbed and cleaned, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was interesting.
I don't have a count.
But-
My shoes clean.
right.
So well, the TSA.
I want
know,
that
but
farm.
there's-
I want that farm debris on them.
Hey, did you know you can pretty soon you're gonna be able to give the TSA the finger? They're doing this whole fingerprint identity thing.
Oh, I already. I went and signed up for pre-check.
They're gonna do.
Yeah. I
fingerprint.
mean,
So when
I
you sign
signed
up,
it.
that you just you put your thumb on there, so but you can still give them the finger.
I was thinking about doing that, but then we flew through Canada, so it didn't matter.
Well, it's for 5 years.
Yeah, but
So-
TSA
Yeah.
is U.S.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
So because I flew through Canada, it wouldn't have helped me at all.
Okay.
Although flying to Orlando or to
You're gonna go through Toronto?
no, no, All right.
All right. Sorry.
it's all right.
That should have been
Let's-
on the thing. That would have been funny. People will laugh at that.
Well, we
Alright.
can.
8 border cross.
All right, let's go through and check the audio level
right.
again.
Test 1, 2, 3. Test.
Test.
Hello.
Test.
Is that what's beeping?
Yeah. What was
So I was
beeping?
pausing.
Not
It
me.
Is that a
sounded like it was
server-
something else.
Server heat
Yeah.
alert.
Yeah,
hope
your
not.
server's overheating.
It could be.
oh,
I don't know if they beep or not.
Don't mind
Hmm.
me. My blood sugar is high, so that's why I'm yawning.
okay.
All right, no problem.
All right.
Oh, do you need something?
I
Like-
gave myself insulin, but
That's because he had the donuts. We should have
I'm
stopped you after
sorry.
2. How many
no,
did you
it's
eat?
okay.
3?
I
Oh my God, we should have stopped you after
I
I
two.
didn't
gave-
realize.
I gave
Yeah.
myself insulin, but my
Yeah.
blood sugar is just as high now as it was when I woke up this morning. So I
Our
have to
Our
change
old-
my
bars.
no. I have to change my site.
Okay.
Our
It's-
old host was diabetic too, and we went to his restaurant and he ordered the biggest ice cream ever. Like that. You
Remember
really
the
shouldn't do
The
that.
schooner.
It's like-
It was called the schooner. It was like a vase full of ice cream.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And that was before he had that medical event too. Remember?
yeah. Well, yeah, the medical event. He had a stroke.
Yeah, that's what he had. So
Anyway,
you know.
well, let's move on. Are we
Yeah.
ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Or do you want me to do it?
Well, what am I
I
doing?
guess. Oh, we need to play the intro. And
yeah,
Then,
it just he points at me like, "Okay, get going, Mary." All right, go ahead.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the beeper.
and this is episode 243.
Fresh looks, traveling with tech.
This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence.
That's right. We're taking a look at since half of our podcasters here traveled recently and took technology with them.
Yeah.
We are going to be taking a look at some of the things that they encountered and how they dealt with them. And who knows, there'll probably be some helpful tips that come out of this.
Right.
At least how to maybe take your phone apart.
Well, it's going to be two kind of angles at it because I traveled to Europe and in Italy. Traveling into Europe is a little bit different with technology than traveling into Japan, right? So so that's what we're going to go back and forth, talk a little bit what we have, and
Mhm.
you guys just
We'll answer or we'll ask questions.
ask questions and pitch in. And
Hmm.
I guess I'll start a little bit just from my point of view. I actually flew through Canada. So from Detroit to Toronto is about a 4-hour drive. And then we flew from Canada or Toronto to Rome, Italy. And the whole time getting ready to go, everybody's like, oh no, they're not going to let you take laptops because of batteries, or make sure you have everything wiped. And basically the flights and the places where I was going was friendly. Like I wasn't really worried about people searching my stuff. I mean, I took a different laptop. I didn't bring my main laptop for two reasons. One was that
Size.
and size. The other one, yeah, because my main laptop's kind of a big laptop. So I took a little netbook. And I only had limited things that I wanted on it. So in case it did get taken, then I wouldn't be worried about the losing stuff, or it wasn't tied to any of my accounts
Was that the netbook that
that I got
you
from you.
for me? How'd that work? Did that work out okay?
It did. It worked really nice.
Okay,
I put a solid state drive in it, and it ran
okay.
great. Yeah,
Good.
I couldn't upgrade the RAM, but
I think
the
it had
drive
two.
was-
Was it 2
yeah, it had
gigs?
2 gigs of RAM.
Which is fine. I mean, for netbooks, because you can get a netbook distro on there. And
Exactly. I put that one you suggested, Budgie, on there,
mm,
and it worked really nice. I really liked
Good.
it.
Excellent.
Yeah. So it was friendly. I mean, I went in, nobody asked me anything other than that you have to take the laptop out when you go through the metal detector. Other than
Mhm.
that, it was all good.
Hmm.
I took a camera. It's a Canon 7D. Tom hooked me up with the guy who was selling it, and I had that in my bag, and I had a monopod that I carried on the plane with me. I was thinking they'd make me take it off and either check it or throw it away, and they didn't say anything. I have this 6-foot stick I could beat people with, and they said, "Oh, you can take it with you."
Well, don't worry. They take away your knives, but then you can get a knife restaurant on the other side of the TSA check.
Yep,
Right.
they took my Leatherman tool. It was in my book bag. I had forgotten about it. So goodbye, nice $80 Leatherman tool.
Oh man.
You will be missed.
Yeah. I had
Yeah.
that happen
Then
a
I
few times.
imply that they're going to take it and use it.
Yeah,
TSA.
right?
You
Yeah.
know. They said no, these get thrown out or whatever. I said sure.
Mm.
Right.
On eBay.
gotta fix the country's budget somehow.
Oh, not to diverge off, but they've caught so many people with loaded guns going through TSA this year, more
Really?
than average. Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, who in the heck takes a loaded gun in their carry-on baggage?
Jeez.
I know it's crazy.
Stupid people.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, yeah. So, but anyway, Tony. So back to your trip.
No, I mean, so that was basically it. When we were traveling throughout the country,
Hmm.
there was no discussion really. I mean, about any like having problems.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh,
we-
did you use your phone? I think on previous shows we've talked about using U.S. based phones over in Europe, and
Yeah.
with Google, my phone, because I got that Google, the
Fi.
Google phone,
Yeah.
Fi, Project Fi. I'm able to use my phone in Europe and call back into the States. I found out. At first I was unsuccessful, but what I had to do is preface the one, for the, you had the one in the
yeah.
area code. I had to preface it with a 0. And once
Yeah.
I did that, I was able to call back, and I left a message on my home phone. That was just the only test I did. So
Yeah. So because I have a Google phone, it's a Nexus 5X, but I'm actually running service through somebody else, through
Mhm.
Republic Wireless,
Hmm.
and so there was no international with that.
Okay.
So when I got over there, I went to a Vodafone, and
Hmm.
it was $25 for a new SIM. So I got an Italian phone number, but I got 5 gigs of data, 300 minutes, and I could call home with 300 minutes.
And you get an Italian
And-
phone number.
And I had an Italian phone number.
Does it end with a vowel?
No,
Just
Um,
use your hands to talk.
right. But the most interesting part was the language barrier, because you go into a cell place and they're not.
Oh, it's in Italian.
Yeah, they're not
They don't speak
international, really,
English.
yeah.
Darn them.
And so I walked in there and I'm in line and there's like these two different people. They have two different lines.
Mhm.
So I'm waiting in one line. They're like, oh no, the guy over here can speak a little bit of English. You got to wait in his line. So then it took me even longer to wait there. But we knew, I mean, we could just talk just enough for him to point out, like, which plan I should get, and then for him to ask me the questions. And when it came to like swapping it out and stuff, I asked for a bag to put my old SIM card in because when I get home, I plan to put it back in and use it when I go home. And he looked around, couldn't find this tiny little bag to keep it in so I wouldn't lose it. So instead, he grabbed tape, and I taped the SIM card right to the back of the phone. And then, and it was under the case.
Oh,
You could
okay.
easily take the case off.
Mhm.
So I had
Yeah.
it taped right here in the back. Actually, you can still see a little bit of the gunk on here.
Oh yeah,
from the
yeah,
tape.
yeah.
I taped it right here, and then when I got home, I just peeled the tape off, put my SIM card back in, and it was good to go.
Nice.
Yeah,
So you'll save that other one for your next trip.
I could.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they actually are good for.
Well, you
'Cause
didn't use up all the minutes, did you?
I didn't. Actually, it was the data. And the only reason I didn't use all the data,
Because you ran out of time.
no.
Oh.
Well, part of it, it's because I couldn't use my phone for 3 days, 4 days.
Because it went swimming.
Yeah, I went swimming.
Oh,
with
that's a
it.
great. Tom, that's a great segue to the next.
Yeah.
So there are some consequences for going swimming with your phone, aren't there, Tony?
That's right.
Believe me, phones and water. I speak from experience. I've
Yeah,
had
so this is
several.
actually the second time this phone has been in water.
The
Once
first
I
time
did
was-
it.
Right.
It's been in two different places. Water in Iceland, and
Yep.
it's been water in Italy now.
Yeah.
Right.
And what? Both of those countries start with an I.
Oh.
Oh. Okay.
Well, technically, it was in the country of Italy, but in the island of Sicily. But anyway,
Couple eyes in that.
right.
But
So
anyway, and I'm only going to jump in quickly because once that happened to me, I thought the phone was toast, but then I discovered that I think it could go up to about 50%. It would
Mhm.
charge, but the charging indicator was not accurate, and so then we
But it stopped working completely. It only showed 50%
Yeah.
all the time, no
that's-
matter if it was
okay.
100% charged
or zero.
or at zero. It showed 50%.
Okay, that was what it was. It was so
Right.
inaccurate that it didn't even work.
And after doing a little bit of googling on it, they said you can replace the battery or just clean the battery lead, and then that
Mhm.
usually fixes it.
Yeah, and the best thing is that Tony and I engineered a trade where I got a nice laptop,
Yeah.
and Tony
And I
got my
got a
own
nice
phone.
phone.
And now, of course, on my new phone I have insurance, so
Yeah.
of course I've never dropped it in water since. But go ahead, Tony.
So I did the whole like throw it in rice. Waited 3 days. When I pulled it out and I tried charging it, it still wouldn't. It wouldn't boot. So what was happening? It would charge, like the little red light indicator would come on, like it's charging. And with the Nexus phones, as soon as or after a minute of it charging, after it thinks it has so much power, it will boot for you. Like you have no option; it just starts up.
Hmm.
And what in that process of it booting, it actually turns off the power from the external power, and it boots off of the battery. And then once it gets to a certain point in the boot sequence, then it starts pulling power again from the plug.
Okay.
Well, my battery was so diminished that it just kept on trying to reboot. And the first few times it showed the Google logo, and then it would just shut off and then start charging. And then a few seconds later, it'd try to boot again. It got to the point where it would I'd plug it in, and the little indicator would come on, and then it would go buzz, and then it would die. And then it would buzz and then die. And like every minute it was doing that. I'm like, that's not a good thing.
It's very, very frustrating when that happens. The phone also starts to, the battery heats up so
Mhm.
much that you feel like the phone's just going to burn itself out. And at some point through this reboot cycle, you kind of just wish it happens so that you don't have to deal with the problem anymore.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing is in the hotel room one day, I got a eyeglass screwdriver and used my pocket knife, and I was able to pry the back off, open up the case because it's a non-removable battery. They say non-removable. So you pull off like 10 screws, and then you can take the battery out. And well, I didn't want to actually pull the battery because it's like taped in place, double-sided tape. But I just took the lead off and cleaned the leads because it was all corroded, popped it back in place, it charged and came up and started working. So I was deemed cell phone doctor by the other students in my class. So that was fun. But it's the same one. Once I got home and had all my tools, I went through and pulled it apart again and re-cleaned all the leads and everything. And then
It
it's
just
been
gives you a
working
sense of
since.
self-satisfaction, doesn't it? When
That's
you,
right. I was able to bring it back from the brink of death.
That's right. The Lazarus phone.
Yeah. So then my 5 gigs, I ended up using 3 gigs of it, and I still have 2 gigs sitting on that SIM card.
Hmm.
So if I ever go back to Italy, then hopefully I'll remember or be able to find that SIM card and use it again. That's gonna be more of the problem, is finding it.
Still
It's
have tape on it, or
floating around at home
Oh,
somewhere.
okay.
No, I don't know if it's in case or
in a
something. I don't know
box
where it is.
somewhere. It's
Yeah,
in a
now
toolbox.
I've lost it. I probably can't find it.
You just
So for
lost 2
$25
gigs.
bucks.
well, it served the purpose.
That's right.
How was coverage over there? Because you went to some remote areas.
It was actually really good.
Okay.
Vodafone, I think, is the biggest in Europe. So we were on Italy and Rome, or I went from Rome to Naples. I got it when I was in Naples, and it did. But so when I used it throughout Naples, had great coverage, and in Sicily also was good coverage. And then the other one is, I think, Wind is the other like popular or big carrier over there. And my wife had a Verizon phone, and she paid for the international plan. It was like $150 or something or no, $80 for 250 megs and 200 minutes. And it was $80.
Wow.
And she got to use her own phone number, so that was nice. But other than that, it was she was on the Wind network,
Hmm.
and it worked. But within 5 days, we had used it all up and then couldn't use it anymore. And so then we switched over using my phone, except for when it was in the bag of rice.
So what happened to the rice?
I threw it out.
Okay.
It would have been chlorine laden. If we tried to
Oh.
eat it, it'd be
Yeah, that's a
bad.
good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right.
But I use that netbook, and I dumped pictures from our cameras and from the phones.
Hmm.
Now the biggest problem was, and I don't know if I think it was the distro that I was using, because I've gotten my wife's phone to work on my main laptop before, but I couldn't dump her phone. And I went through and installed every iPhone package of whatever I could find,
Hmm.
and I Googled, and I spent 4 days of 2 hours every night for 4 days messing with it. I couldn't get it to recognize. Like it would recognize it. It would say it's paired or recognize, or, and there's this like code that it shows on there, and the phone says it's recognized, but it would never mount as a file system.
Hmm.
So
Well, you know how I solved that problem is I put KDE Connect on my phone and KDE Connect on my laptop. And
do they have it for iPhone? Do they have KDE Connect for?
oh, there's a problem.
Should have found it. But and can you do file system? Is
Huh?
that file system? Like, can you pull files off of your phone?
No, but
That's
yeah,
what
you
I
can
had to
you
do.
can pull files off this phone
Oh, okay.
with KDE Connect,
Hmm.
and it also gives you all your notifications, Twitter notifications.
iPhone
Tells
has
you
so
how
many
much-
restrictions
awesome.
on that too.
Tells you how much your battery how much battery you got left.
Hmm.
Yeah, it does. And not only that, if your phone is somewhere in the house and you don't know where it is, it has a little thing here where you can
Every
hit
day.
KDE Connect, and it will send out a little pulse to ring your phone, and then you
Yeah.
can, believe me, I used it once. It's great.
That's nice.
So
Feels like I don't know where my phone is now.
That's so I asked my wife, and she gets mad at me because I can't remember where I put things.
mhm.
Keys, wallet, watch, my
Mm.
butt. Glad it's attached.
I was gonna say it's right there. So, well, Tony, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So I ended up having to use
Oh yeah,
a
Wi-Fi.
friend's laptop for
Okay.
for our iPhone.
Okay.
Wi-Fi was okay. Like, well, what was neat is everywhere you go, there was Wi-Fi. So every restaurant we went to, they had Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
Every grocery stores had Wi-Fi. Gas stations had Wi-Fi.
Did the
So my
towns and cities have Wi-Fi too?
no, not
Okay.
that I saw. I didn't see any like public Wi-Fi like that. It's just each of the restaurants we went to. One restaurant wanted to take my phone into a different room to punch in the code and then come back. I'm like, no. They're like, what are you talking about? I was like, you're not taking my phone. He's like, really? He looks at the other guy. Is this guy crazy? I'm like, no, you're not taking my phone.
Oh, he's
write
just
down what
an
the
American.
code is. I said, write down what the code is, and I'll put it in. He's like, oh, all right. And he had to like,
It's not like you can't just get the password out. Do they
right.
take your phone and remove their Wi-Fi connection from your phone when you leave? Like that's
I
part of
didn't
the
get it.
checkout.
Or was it a really long one and he wanted to go in the back and read it off the wall?
It wasn't that long, but I think that's what they do. They have to go back and it was like written on the wall in the kitchen, and
No one wants to rewrite it on a slip of paper.
yeah. No, it wasn't that long. It was like the name of the city and some or the name of the restaurant plus like a year or something like that. So
Oh.
I don't understand why he didn't want to.
They made
do
a
it,
big
but
deal about it, anyways.
Yeah,
Wow.
but otherwise, everywhere else, all the restaurants either had a placard on the wall everywhere, like Wi-Fi password, or they had, or it was in the menu. So that was really cool.
I like places that change the password based on the dish they have available. It's their special.
Oh,
I've been to a few places like that, and I thought that was clever.
Yeah, that is clever.
Save the Connect, and our special today is beans or whatever. You know, just
And it kind of prevents the parking lot
yes,
surfers.
yes. We had
So-
parking lot surfers here, and we just changed the password. One of the guys was bold enough to come in and go, "Your Wi-Fi quit working." Yeah, we're having problems with it. Is he's parking in a parking lot? Just use her Wi-Fi. We're like,
Oh
Wow.
my God, he comes in and says your Wi-Fi is not working.
yeah, we're working on it. He was watching the sports games, and he thought our parking lot was the place to do that
You know,
because we
you-
can see the traffic. We know where we're going.
You could have used Squid to point him at something nefarious.
We
like
did
not
con-
sports.
Oh.
Yeah, we did consider it, but we decided we had work to do, and messing with a guy in a parking lot was not on the list.
Yeah.
The desire was there.
Is that one of the butt throwers?
Oh, the butt throwers. Yes,
Cigarette butts.
cigarette
Yeah.
butts. That actually seems to have ended. They finally quit coming in our parking lot.
That's
They
good.
got in trouble with management because management was on our side. So we won't segue into that. There's a whole other discussion.
All right.
Back to tech topics. So Wi-Fi wasn't bad. Lots of Wi-Fi at restaurants, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Except for like two of the hotels we went to had really bad Wi-Fi. So that sucked. At night we tried to call our kids and it didn't. It worked like half the time.
You know what though? When I was in Mackinac last, I had the same problem. They had awful Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I had to go downstairs to the lobby each time because the hotel their Wi-Fi was broken. They had a whole mesh network set up with netgears and they were not configured properly.
Oh. Should
Yeah.
offer. No, you know, for a fee, I can
Thought
fix
about
this
that.
for
I
you.
can fix this for you.
I did ask him who does Right T and asked him if I could fix it. 'Cause they want to just log into it and start resetting it. And they use some guy who comes out there to the island, and he only comes out like once a month or something. So when stuff goes wrong, and I'm like, this is such an awful network.
Oh.
Yeah.
I actually did help them. The first hotel we were at, I did help them fix their Wi-Fi. They, because I noticed that getting on the same SSID, it would come up, and one would be encrypted, you know, with a lock, and the other one would be open.
hmm
I'm like, they shouldn't be doing that, you know. And then it like causes havoc with my laptop connecting.
Yeah.
So that was one of the problems. It was so bad. And then so one day we were standing there, we're all getting together in the lobby, and we're about to leave, and I mentioned it to him, and he's like, "No, I'll show you." And he's like, "No, it's not. It's encrypted." No, I'm like, "I know it's not." He's like, "No, come here," and he starts showing me. He says, "Right there. See the password's in there," but it wasn't checked to use it. It was
Right.
left open. It's like, "No, you need to hit that check." He's like, "Oh." And then he checked like 4 of the other access points they have, and it was like every other one had the wrong setting.
Well, misconfigured equipment.
So yeah.
What is not to broadcast this, but when you get a chance, if I'd like to get on your wireless with my phone, so you know you can.
I'm talking about
Jot
wireless
it.
here. I was across the street giving blood, and his Wi-Fi would come up, but it was too weak to connect to it. Anyway,
How much blood did you give? Pint?
a pint.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm up to 2.5
You're a pint
gallons.
low? Oh. Really? Did you
Yeah.
get some kind of an award?
You get a pin every gallon. You get a pin.
Nice going, Tony. That's very
2
nice.
pins so far.
Yeah, I can't for medical reasons. I can't give blood.
Oh yeah. And my
I don't
wife's
have
same
any.
way.
No.
every time I go to schedule, they say, "Can you convince or can you have a friend come with you?" I'm like, my wife's the only person that I could convince to do it, and she can't.
Hmm.
I'm like,
They're going to
"Oh,
come up
okay."
with fake blood pretty soon. I mean, artificial blood.
Really.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I've read stuff on it. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's ready for prime time, but
Yeah. So Phil,
so
how was your experience?
yeah.
So I took the stereotypical paranoid traveler approach. I had my laptops with BIOS passwords and then encrypted file systems, encrypted home directories. I then took all of my personal information and Git repositories off because I could always just reclone that. I then dumped my SSH keys and VMs onto a small little micro SD card, which I put, which the backup was encrypted, and then I encrypted the card itself with Lux, and I put that little card into a spy coin. And you could also cut out like a hole in like an eraser, and then just put your micro SD card in there, put the top of the eraser that you cut back in, and you hide that in a bag. I wasn't concerned about Canadian border crossing or Japanese border guards. I was concerned about coming back into America because I didn't want the TSA to search through my devices.
Mhm.
We powered down our phones. We took the batteries out, put them in, put them hidden in our luggage, but they could still see that.
Right.
But when they turned our phones on, hey, what's the passwords for these? Well, we don't know. So coming back into America is the scary portion for me. We didn't have any trouble though, so even though we prepared for it, we were safe this time. But
But next time.
I brought a helmet with me for our United flight. No one tried to take me off, so that's good. Uh,
Are you serious?
no,
No.
partially.
He was being prepared though.
Yeah.
I got to fly business class on a flight from Chicago to Vancouver. I don't know how that happened, but it was the nicest flight that I've ever had. It was so comfortable. The flight attendant said to me, "Oh no, sir, you're sitting up here." I'm like, "Wait, me? What?" So that was enjoyable.
Did you get free booze?
We did. We got free little bottles of wine,
Mhm.
and if you asked, you could get more. So I
Mhm.
kept asking, and that was fun.
On the Chicago to Vancouver flight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Long flight dinners are actually pretty decent.
Mhm.
I took a liking to them. We got to see movies in the backs of every single seat, so
Mhm.
that was enjoyable.
That's how
did-
mine was too.
Did a little bit of reading, not too much, mostly sleeping. Coming back from Japan, I had a 9.5 hour flight next to the other tallest person on the airplane.
Oh,
So it was a
God.
constant battle of
Elbows.
our elbows, our knees, and that was extremely uncomfortable. But
Oh.
But you didn't break out into a fight.
no, we didn't.
My flight back was 8 hours from Rome to Montreal, and it was the TV in front of mine
It was
would
broken.
not. It was broken. It wouldn't boot up. Like it'd show the boot screen and it would come up to the main interface so you can start, but the touch screen wouldn't work at all. So I couldn't do anything then. And then I had my laptop with me. I'm like, okay, I'll just pull my laptop. I go to plug in to charge because they have things you could charge your phone, your laptop, and your phone
Mhm.
right there on the back of the seat. That was broken too.
So it's like
So I couldn't. I had about 2 hours. I could use my laptop, and then that was it. And then I had 6 hours of napping, and I had to get paper out and actually read.
Oh my
from
God.
paper.
In Japan, I got no cell service, even though I have Project Fi. I don't know if I was doing something wrong with my phone, but I had no bars. However, there is Wi-Fi in every single one of the cities of Tokyo. So Tokyo is something like 52 or 58 square miles, 31 million people.
about that, that square miles, because Detroit is 134 square miles.
Okay, so it's
Think about
it's
that.
way
Yeah,
half
and there's
the
like
size.
600,000 people that live in the city of Detroit.
And
so
there's-
I,
Tokyo's half the size, and
Ground
what?
and
How many
it-
million did you say?
I think there's 31
20
million people there.
31 million.
I-
Holy cow!
Yeah.
On a clear morning, you could step out.
And step on someone.
Yeah, you could step out onto like a deck of a tall building, and you could see buildings until the horizon, and then
Wow.
the buildings kept going past that. But there was Wi-Fi everywhere, and to get around not having cell service, they have Japanese people have these tiny little Wi-Fi devices that you just carry in your pocket. It's called pocket Wi-Fi, and you pay a cell bill every month for that. There's not much data on it, but it'll allow you to make phone calls and stuff.
Oh.
So our place let us carry one of those for a week, and so I just had my phone connected to that Wi-Fi, so I could look things up, use maps, use
Nice.
translations. Every bar, restaurant, city, high-rise, little underground shops, there was Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah.
So we were covered on that end. My wife's phone, she has to use a SIM card, and she didn't want to carry the pocket Wi-Fi. So you can buy a new SIM card with like 5 gigs of data on it, or things like that. At the airport, you'll pay up to $100 depending on quantity of data that you want, or you can wait a little bit and find a big camera store, and you can get the same exact card for half the price.
Yeah.
So she got her SIM card for $40 instead of like $80 or $90 at the airport.
Nice.
So just waiting a little bit and having a map of the area you need to go to before you actually land is extremely important.
Yeah.
Getting around all the subways and trains and buses and stuff. The first 2 days was kind of confusing, but after that it just felt everything felt normal. Except I couldn't read anything. But
Right.
you can start figuring
But you can
out
look at the pictures.
Yes, you
And they
can.
have a lot of candy over there.
Oh,
Oh,
they-
you can't. Well, they have a lot of interesting stuff. I mean,
Oh,
not just the
they did.
food.
Yeah, I had so much food there.
Oh.
We had the greenest matcha ice cream, I guess, in the world. So there was this tiny little shop, and they had plain. It was just called plain ice cream. It was just white, and I think it was only milk and sugar. And then they had a gradient. It went from brown matcha, like very, very light brown, all the way up to this deep, super rich green color. And we
What-
got to try all of it.
What is matcha?
That matcha is what makes green tea.
Oh.
It's a leaf that they grind up into a powder.
Hmm.
Also took a liking to green tea.
Hey,
Mhm.
cool.
Now, but was it you or was it someone else that told me, the green tea over here is not like the green tea over there?
It is not. Um, over,
Freshness, I think.
yes.
That's
There's also this stuff called rice tea. I think it's brown. You get it when you're at.
brown or white. No,
Yep.
sorry.
Instead of putting water out at tables, in restaurants and stuff, they'll put out this rice tea, and you just drink it. It tastes barley tea. Sorry, that's what it is.
Oh,
It-
barley.
It tastes kind of
Oh.
weird. Wasn't really a fan of it,
Mhm.
but when there's nothing else to drink, it did the trick.
And it's probably vitamins in it. Isn't that one of the ingredients in beer?
Barley is, yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
So it was sort of like proto beer you drank.
Interesting.
Non-fermented.
Yeah.
Yeah, not fermented. Yeah.
Interesting thing about beer. Beer costs more in Japan than hard liquor. So you can get a drink called sochu, and I believe I mentioned this the last time, but it's a little bit of beer that you can pour the equivalent of about 2 shots of hard liquor into. Then you mix it together, and you drink it like that. It was fun.
We had a lot of wine, obviously in Italy. We had a lot of wine, and wine was cheaper than pop.
Whoa.
And like to get a Coke, well, I mean, at restaurants, it's definitely, and it definitely was cheaper than beer. Like beer was a $6, can of beer,
Yep.
and wine was like $2 for a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were traveling with 12 people, so half the time it was at least 6 of us eating anywhere we went. So we'd get 2 bottles of wine at least, and that would just start us out. And it was like $10 for a bottle of wine in a restaurant. If we go to the grocery store, it was $3
Yeah.
or euros. I'm sorry, €3 and for a bottle of wine, and it was good stuff. It wasn't like the really cheap bad stuff that we have around here for $5. But yeah, but you're right. And then for bottled water, they would never bring us that tap water. It was always bottled water at the restaurant, and it would be maybe €3 for a liter of water. And you always had to tell them whether you want no gas or gas water, and basically like soda water.
Oh, okay.
And so everybody there assumed you want soda water unless you say no gas. So,
How do you say it in Italian?
No gas here.
It's natural, no gas. And they understood that part.
But you have to do this with your hand. You
Yeah.
kind of put the end of your fingers together and wave them around.
Yeah, they always
Yes,
say if you don't use your hands, they don't understand you. No matter what you say, if there's no hand movements, they don't understand.
How awesome was it to not have to tip when you were out of America?
Yeah, definitely. They didn't expect tips like we do around
Yeah,
here. And
yeah, same thing in
I think we
Iceland.
still tipped a little bit, but I mean, like maybe 10%. Where I'm normally here, like a low tip is 20%.
Yeah.
And so there, I mean, we were tipping 10%, and they thought we were awesome.
Interesting.
We didn't have to tip at all, and we got fantastic service, and that's just what is expected. You don't tip in Japan. It was
because they're well paid.
So how are people in
From the
Japan about
get-go.
being on their phone? Is it like we have here? Is they're playing with their phone all the time and they're
Yep. When you're on the subway or the train or the bus, people have their phones, have comics, they're watching videos, listening to music. I guess reading, not comics, manga.
manga.
It felt just like America, except I couldn't read anything. It was interesting. I didn't feel out of place.
Despite the fact you towered over everyone.
But Phil's kind of tall anyway, for those of you who don't know. So
Yeah.
I wore very bright colored shirts. I'm 6'3", by the way, and my group could always spot me in the crowds, and that was fun.
That's funny.
But the reason for going that we went over to Japan was for the Linux Foundation had the Open Source Summit, and this was at the Ariake Conference Center, and they also at the same time had the Automotive Linux conference. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I got to see new technology that could be going into vehicles in the coming years. I got to talk to people from Gentoo, Red Hat, SUSE. Saw far too many presentations on Kubernetes, which is a container orchestration tool. Kubernetes is this entirely gigantic monster of a project. It's like OpenShift. No, not OpenShift. It's like OpenStack in the amount of moving pieces, except you don't need to have a dedicated engineering team to run Kubernetes like you do with OpenStack.
Wow.
So that was really interesting, getting to see other container-related tools other than like HashiCorp's Nomad or Docker Swarm, which I can't stand. So that was interesting. I got a lot of stickers. I
Yes, you did.
I will bring them all so I can give you a bunch next time that we convene
You know,
for a
you gave us a
podcast.
bunch already.
Not Tony yet.
Oh, not Tony.
No, I got
Yep.
it. I got Let's Encrypt today.
Yeah.
So I put it on my
Yeah.
laptop.
I was encrypting all of the Japanese cities that we went to. I also encrypted up North Michigan and Mackinac City
What do you-
by slapping "Let's Encrypt" stickers everywhere.
Oh, awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. Excellent. All right.
Um,
So,
Oh, so you're talking about encrypting everything and bringing it back and making sure. I went kind of on the other end. Is I just made sure I didn't have anything on my systems, and I left it unencrypted, so that it wasn't like, oh, you have this encrypted, then now you need to, you're hiding something from us. So, I had everything available on my own cloud. So if I needed to get to my paperwork and stuff, then I would be able to log in through the website and get to that. But it just I didn't store it on my local device for them to be able to search through or anything.
mhm.
I was wondering what encryption is. I heard you say Lux. That's the same one I use to encrypt all my stuff as well. It's such a great tool, and it's very cross-compatible across all the platforms on Linux.
Mhm.
It's like built into it's a kernel built-in driver, isn't it?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, so
Yeah.
I can't speak.
I don't think I
accurately
have
on
to add anything extra to any modern machine. It just
Mhm.
recognizes Lux encryption right off the bat.
Yeah, I know in Ubuntu, like I've used in Ubuntu and Mint, and it's like that. It just works.
Mm.
Oh,
that.
And you can install. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lux is really easy to use. The part that's hard is when you forget the password and you forget
Oh.
you forget the hint that you wrote in your
Oh
notebook.
yeah, there you go. Are you dead in the water?
So that was a frustrating good like 30 minutes of retrying passwords and rebooting.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh. What about Linux in the wild? Did you see much of that over there?
All of the in-dash monitors on the airplane, I believe, use it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was same with us.
Same with on trains. Over in Japan, when you've got the advertisement LEDs, I guess,
Hmm.
or the advertisement screens that flip through ads and information about the train ride and stuff. But other than that, no, I didn't really see anything, which means that there's the kernel just hiding and doing its job correctly.
Yeah.
I didn't see very much Microsoft stuff, but it could also just be hidden doing its job correctly. How about
Could be.
you?
I in the airplane, I saw it there, and because I saw it on mine reboot many times because I had them reset my system. But other than that, it's either they didn't have as much technology out and about as much as I expected. Like digital signage and stuff was limited. I mean, there was a few stores that had it, but really, if everything's working properly, you're not going to know because you're seeing the advertisement, not the operating system.
Yep, there was so many ads everywhere. It was crazy. It was like the movie They Live on steroids, just because of the amount of people there and the amount of different companies advertising. You would have advertisements on top of advertisements on top of advertisements. But to me, I didn't know what any of it was, so it was just pretty lights and stuff.
Right.
There was a temple in one of the cities. So every city was a little bit different from each other. So you had one city that was real kind of like ancient Japan. There was gardens and old style temples and fountains and the person with the rake pulling it through the sand to make nice clean
Oh,
lines.
Zen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you could go to a completely different city, and it would be the technology city. I believe that one was called Akihabara, and there would be multi-level technology stores. So those are called camera stores because they sell like cameras from tiny little phones all the way up to gigantic lenses that cost 300,000 American dollars.
Mhm.
Ooh.
And then you could touch them and look through them.
Hmm.
And then
And they're white with a red little ring around because they're made by Canon.
but
They're neat.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've used them.
every store was multi-leveled. So you would walk into a store on the first floor. Let's say you would see TVs. Second floor, you would see toys or kids and stuff. The next floor, you could see books. Floor after that would be cameras or whatnot. You get the point. But every building was like that. If you could put up a building in Japan, zoning is so weird that whatever shape you could fit a building into, they let you,
Really?
and then you just build up from there. We had restaurant buildings that had restaurants on top of restaurants on top of restaurants. The video game Pokemon started to make a lot more sense when you would go into the big Pokemon cities and you would go into these high rises of just shops. So that was kind of cool. It was eye opening to see that. Oh, that's why they did that. Um, and then in one of the cities we found the technology shrine. So it looked like an ancient Japanese temple, except you could
It was made of circuit board.
yes, you could
It was.
you could say a little prayer and offer up a donation. So I offered up a small little 3-foot Ethernet cable, and then you could pay to get a little souvenir to say, hey, you were here. The one that I got was a small sticker sheet that looked like printed circuit board. I stuck one on my laptop, one on a piece of work gear to protect the work gear from any evil hackers or malicious code.
That's cool.
There was a city that had a shrine dedicated to cats, and there was cats just laying all across the shrine, just walking along the street, coming up to it. It was interesting. And
Wow.
anything you could think of a shrine for, it was probably there.
So what are the prices of technology like stereos or something or phones? Were they relatively the same or were they cheaper or more expensive?
Everything seemed prices were cheaper than American for sure. So if something was 100 yen, that would be a little less than $1. But you didn't usually pay for things in the 100 increments. So carrying 1,000 yen was $10, but or a little less than $10, and that felt normal. You just moved a decimal point.
Yeah.
Their currency's been depressed for, I think, quite a while.
Mhm.
So
But like a phone, like the Nexus 5 or whatever the next generation, it's it's what 400 almost or $500 here.
You would pay equivalent
Yeah.
in yen.
Okay.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
Like the gigantic Canon lens that was a good 3 feet long, and you had to have like a team of strong men carry it on their backs and like a pack mule to drag the
Sherpa.
thing.
Sure.
It was something like a million yen.
Wow.
But for good reason, because it'll probably take the best pictures anyone's ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, by where I went, in the cities, there are a bunch of little shops, and they were all like the specialized, so there weren't like multi-level stores. It was all like
You mean
you walk
technology
in
shops or
small.
just general shops?
Actually, I saw maybe one or two technology shops. Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't, and then I saw a bunch of cell phone shops. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of technology shops.
Mhm.
So it was all like, clothing stores and restaurants and ice cream shops or gelato shops. That was all over the place. uh, and so most of it was cash and carry, but there just in that kind of shops you don't really need a lot of technology other than the cash register. Um, but that's a surprise. I didn't see as many like tech shops. Like where do you buy a laptop? I mean, I know we see you buy cell phones, but I just didn't see them, and I guess I didn't ask anybody the question. But
in Akihabara, they also call it the Electric City. You could buy a laptop on any street corner,
really,
and
And they weren't hot? No.
that so
kidding.
in that particular city, you could get laptops, phones, whatever you needed down any one of the many sprawling streets,
Mhm.
and then you take a 5-minute train ride, and you're in a completely different world.
Wow,
Very, very interesting.
that's cool.
Don't we haven't. Sorry,
Tom looks surprised over there.
I'm also.
Tom, we're all looking at you.
So when you asked me, just side note, when you asked me for the Wi-Fi password, I tried
Yes.
pulling it up and then I had to find it out on my computer. But you know what the beeping noise was? The RAID array that's been died.
oh
And
my
all
God.
my processors on my virtual stack are pinned because they're trying to write to a drive that
Rest
doesn't
in
exist.
peace.
Oh no.
Yeah, I knew this. This was actually on today's project list because we seen the errors on it and we ignored them.
There's that RAID in
RAID in
peace.
peace.
Yeah.
RAID in peace. So my
Sorry to
RAID
hear
is in
that.
pieces right now.
Oh,
We knew it.
wow.
This is the second SSD RAID array to fail, by the way.
And
How long has it been
Oh,
operating?
it's a few years. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
not new or anything.
But
what kind of controller card?
Onboard motherboard one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're using the Linux RAID MADM module and
MD80M.
MDDM.
Software RAID.
Yeah, software RAID.
okay.
We've had problems with it before. This is why we're moving everything to the virtual stack and the FreeNAS because it just works way better with ZFS. I've had this scenario happen before. We get the errors, and within a few days of the errors, we know what's happening next.
And thank you for that,
Yeah.
by the way, too, because I did get my phone on there. I got they're connected via KDE Connect, and remember I had said, and I know we're probably getting ready to wrap up this
Yeah.
episode, but I mentioned that your phone, as long as your phone and
Computer.
your laptop are on the same network at
Yes.
home, you can find it because here's
So as long as you've lost your phone at home, Phil, you can use.
see, I just said ring my phone off KDE Connect, and notice what it says on there. It says
Found.
found. Well,
Only when you find it. it
only
says
until
that.
you find it. Yeah. So
So I have
anyway,
this thing. When I lose my phone, the way I find it,
you call it.
yeah. Like I go to my phone, my wife's phone, and say, "Call my phone," and then we walk around the house until I can hear it.
I use the.
and you can do that too.
Yeah.
I have the Google tracking tools for my devices, and my friend has it too. And he actually was able to track someone who stole his phone from the beach a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
He was able to track where they went, and he found his phone. And he got it back. They actually chucked it out the window after a little. He has a password on it, so they got aggravated and they threw it out the window, and they got his phone.
Wow.
He used Google to figure out where it was left.
No, pretty good.
They did crack the screen when they threw it, but he found it.
Wow.
So do you have to keep your location on for that though?
Yeah. So
Okay. I turn mine off at every possible moment.
Well, we're talking about a Google phone. Come on.
Yeah. They didn't turn it off. They just told me it did.
yeah, yeah, there is that.
All
So if you're
right.
security conscious.
All right. Yeah. So, I guess we're wrapping it up.
Wrapping it
then.
up, yeah.
All right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So you've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 243.
Fresh looks, tech, and travel. Of traveling with technology.
Yeah.
That's right.
So this is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
Phil Parada.
See you next time.
You've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you would like more information about this or other shows, go to smlr.us. Feel free to send comments to show@smlr.us or give us a call at 734-258-5500. 7009. I'm John Miller. If you don't like it, you can
Bite my 8-bit metal ass. That's bite with a Y.
All right. Say goodbye to the YouTubers.
All right, bye.
YouTube
Hi,
followers.
I'm gonna go fix my Raider A.